Sir, you're charged with especially aggravated kidnapping. You're also charged with aggravated assault. And you're charged with theft of a firearm worth less than $2,500.
You're talking about stuff that is not relevant.
Hello and welcome to the Court of Public Opinion. I am the recovery addict, and boy do I have a case for you today.
Why is the dog chewing on this guy?
I think they have got the wrong guy there.
They got the wrong guy, and the dog was biting him.
He roughing him up quite a bit. There's a lawsuit.
9 out of 10 judges prefer watching the Recovery Addict live stream in their courtroom.
The fireworks are not done.
Now we're getting commentary on the case. From state. That he ugly Tom boy. He's very much loved you. I didn't ask you to interrupt me.
Is that correct?
Literally not true.
Good morning. There it is. Had to turn the mic on. Good morning. Welcome to the Court of Public Opinion. I am the Recovery Addict.
It's bigger than you. It's bigger than me. It's bigger.
It's bigger. How big is it?
It's bigger than you. It's bigger than me. It's bigger than all of us.
All right, there it is. I don't know why I cannot get that thing to work. My desk is crowded with stuff. I'll show you that in a minute. Welcome. It's a little late. I stayed up late getting my hair cut. I don't have much, but what I do have, I got cut last night. Thanks, Mrs. R.A. for that. I think it looks great, so don't say anything different. Good morning, good Thursday morning. It is Podcast Thursday. Alrighty. We're going to be going to court here in just a minute, so we've got to do a couple things really quickly. What kind of blade did he let Mrs. R.A. come at you with? Safety razor. Like one of those clippers from Amazon. Let's see. Good morning. I'm sorry. You got notification. Because I just barely went live. Just barely. We're going to do quick birthdays this morning. We've got some birthdays to sing to. So everyone stand up, take a deep breath. Shoulders back, project your voice to the back of the room, blend your voice with a neighbor. Warm up with me if you will. La 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 la. Jeff and Jackson celebrating their birthdays. Happy birthday, Jeff and Jackson. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Jeff and Jackson. Happy birthday to you.
You look good.
Judge, thank you for weighing in. Happy birthday. Jeff and Jackson celebrating their special day today. Jeff and Jackson, I realize there are a million places you could be, a million people you could have celebrated with, but you've chosen to be here with us. The privilege, the pleasure, the honor is all ours. Hopefully we could make your day a little more special by serving you free pancakes at Denny's, IHOP Village Inn, Waffle House, McDonald's, Andy's Bar and Grill, Tammy Dunlop's house, and Bob Evans. Free pancakes. That music is really loud this morning. For those who are saying I didn't get a notification, it's okay. I just started. You just missed the birthday song. I haven't even welcomed our internet winner for the day, which we're going to do here in just a moment. Tisha says, happy birthday to my brother Jeff. Thank you, guys. Tisha S., happy birthday to your brother. Jeff, have a happy birthday. But is R.A. making birthday cinnamon rolls?
Happy birthday. You look good.
Probably not. You can never rush the birthday song. I mean, we do sometimes, but we shouldn't. Okay, we're coming up to the last verse. At the end of the last verse, we're going to do a drum solo to finish this off and kick off the birthday celebrations in style. Here it comes. Everyone grab your air drum stick, sit down in your air drum set, get ready to play the drum solo of your career, your drumming career right here. Beautiful. Thank you all. We now also have to welcome Alyssa J., who's first in chat today. Alyssa, congratulations. And I'm sorry. I say, why am I sorry? Well, I'm sorry you're first in chat. Not that I didn't want you to be. I'm happy that you're here. I'm happy that you said hi and everyone started talking and all this happened as a result. But it was as a result of you being first in chat that all this happened. And so we're going to punish you. We're going to sentence you to internet ownership for the rest of the day, or at least until we go live again. Alyssa, just you take care of the internet and everything connected to it for everyone, everywhere, all day. It's going to be great. It's going to be great. It's good for us, at least. It might not be the best day for you, but you're going to do a good job. Congratulations. You can add this to your permanent resume. It goes on your permanent record. You can use this as a cover sheet for your resume, or you can even download a certificate that is suitable for framing. Let's see. We're getting
March
started
20th,
right now in court.
My name is Richard L. Hagar, District
Hello,
Court
Judge.
This is the time and place set for trial. We are on our
What do we have 22s of?
fourth day on the calendar, third day on the actual trial. File is 51-2022-CR421, State of North Dakota versus Nichole Aaron Rice. Ms. Rice is present along with her counsel. The state is represented also. We don't have the jury yet. Before I call them in, Ms. Sorgan, was there anything else before I call the jury?
Bring the jury.
Oh, no, Your Honor.
You okay?
I'm not feeling real hot this morning, so if during Mr. Nelson's questioning, I have to run out in the hallway.
Okay.
Just a heads up,
So
Your Honor.
we're going to depend on Mr. Nelson then. All right?
I depend on Mr. Nelson a lot, Your Honor.
Okay. Mr. Sand, any issues?
He shakes his head.
All right, let's call in the jury, please.
Okay, so prosecution's under the weather. That's a bad start for the day. Somebody bring a little what do they call those? A courtesy bag that the airline has for you. Somebody have one of those on standby in case it's needed. It must. They haven't shown her yet, but it must not be good because the judge noticed. He's like, "You doing okay?" Oh, look at this. Now my camera's crooked. How did that happen? Can we isolate her so others don't get sick?
Thank you very much. Please have a seat. Mr. Nelson, do you waive roll call of the jury?
State waives roll call, Your Honor.
Mr. Sand, do you waive roll call of the jury?
We do, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Nelson, call your next witness.
State calls Jordan Thompson.
Jordan Thompson, first witness of day 3 of the trial. We've had some pretty interesting witnesses so far. We're hoping that the audio is a little bit better today, particularly with the defense.
Officer Thompson, if you'll come up here, please. We're going to have you swear an oath.
I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
And then we'll have you come over there, please. Once you're situated, just make sure the mic's aimed at your chin and the light is on. All right, Mr. Nelson, you may proceed.
That's your
Thank
tie,
you, Your Honor.
not your
Could
chin.
you state your name for the record, please?
Jordan Thompson.
And where are you currently employed?
I'm a parole and probation officer with the North Dakota Department of Corrections.
Now, were you working with for the Minot Police Department in June of 2007?
Yes.
What was your time frame for employment with the Minot Police Department?
1997 to 2009.
Okay. And were you a licensed peace officer in the state of North Dakota at that time?
Let's all
Yes.
clear our throats.
Are you still today?
Yes.
Okay. Could you run down your training and experience for us, please?
Weekend in
Went
Vegas.
to Minot State University, got my bachelor's degree in criminal justice. I went through the police academy in Devil's Lake. I worked a couple years at the Williston PD, 11 years at the Minot PD, and 16 years with the Department of Corrections.
Okay.
Can you pull it just a little closer, please, Mr. Thompson? Thank you.
Now, in June of 2007, what was your role with the Minot Police Department?
I was a sergeant in the detective division.
Okay, so investigations?
Yes.
Okay. As part of that, were you involved in this case?
To a degree, yes.
What was your involvement in this case?
I went to the scene with Detective Goodman, and we were examining the window. when the crime scene was originally found, I was on vacation at that time, so I wasn't involved with all the initial investigating.
So your involvement was pretty much limited to just that one moment at the window?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know if there was video taken of that moment at the window?
Yes, there was.
Okay. Permission to approach the witness, Your Honor?
You may.
Well, he approaches the witness. We will be going back as soon as we have a break here and covering the closings of our New Hampshire case, which are going on right now, and then they're going to be in jury deliberation. So the goal is possibly to cover that at lunchtime here. It's just two things going on at once, and this one started first.
I've handed you a disc. Do you recognize that disc?
Yes.
Does that disc have your initials on it?
Yes.
Have you previously watched that or reviewed that disc?
Yes.
That disc, is that a copy of the video of the reenactment at the window?
Yes.
And is it an accurate copy of that reenactment?
Yes.
The state moves to introduce this into evidence, Your Honor. What's the exhibit number?
14.
Exhibit 14, Your Honor.
Mr. Sand?
No objection.
Plaintiff's Exhibit 14 is received without objection.
Permission to publish, Your Honor?
You may.
And do you see a screen in front of you with like a home page with a tent on it?
Yes.
Just making sure you're seeing the same thing.
Sergeant, can you make sure it's on that screen too, please? All right. Thank you very much.
Now, before we go any further with this video, who are the two people that you see right there?
Myself and Detective David Goodman.
And which is which?
I'm on the right. Detective Goodman's on the left in the plaid polo shirt.
Mr. Nelson, is there any sound on this?
There should be, Your Honor.
It's a great little video here. Looks like a commercial for Amway sales. No offense if you happen to be an Amway salesperson. Does Amway even still exist? Is that a thing?
Start it over.
Sure.
Please. Thank you, Colette.
And just to see if it comes through here, I'm just going to place the microphone next to the computer. Okay.
Oh, good. We're putting the microphone next to the computer, so the bad mic can pick up the bad speaker. He's cutting the screen as closely as he possibly can. Oh, wow, it's a reverse L, almost corner to corner. Now we're going to see, I don't know if they hired like a circus performer or what to try to fit through that slot. And we had 7.4 billion in sales last year. Sounds like it exists. Okay.
We're assuming that that would be cut from somebody coming out and maybe ripping it. But now looking at this, I don't know if that would be possible. This isn't as tight as what you think. Video, I mean, somebody came out in a light, drove down there, and they rip it. So now you've got this much of an area to get to.
In slacks and Florsheim's, he's going to... Oh, yeah, this is good. Yeah, try to fit your leg and your body through it once.
Since I'm less muscular than you do?
Yeah, I was going to say, he's a pretty big guy.
I just ripped it. Oh, no. And he kicked it.
We're doing it.
We're going to need another screen.
Yeah, I bet you that rip was somebody leaving, and maybe you've got that in there. So now, try coming out and maybe drag this leg or whatever over to see if it either rips there.
Okay, this is just good television right here. Let's see if he's able to come out without hurting himself.
Is this the same style screen and everything? I don't think that would rip. I think it would be. Well, I was trying to get through without touching things as much as I could. And the screen was out.
I'd like to thank the Air Force for the low-pass flyover, whatever that was.
Yeah, but even him, that was not easy getting in or out.
Yeah, well, the screen was also laying on the ground.
Yeah, but I mean,
But
even though it wasn't laying on the ground.
Oh, I thought you said it was.
It was still in the window, but it was pushed out. Okay, so the frame was pushed out. So with that cut, though, I mean, I'm almost thinking that had to have been cut. It's perfectly straight. Yeah, because I mean, I heard it rip when I was going in, and it's uneven at the very end, which is where I tore when I went in. Right, and same thing, if you were coming out and your leg drags here, look at the pressure it's putting on the end of the screen. It's going to rip there. It's not going to rip here.
Why does this feel like somebody sitting in a hotel room throwing their cell phone back and forth? Oh yeah, this is good. This is good. Just dive in. Circus performer style, like tuck and roll. Zoom. Now the screen's pretty much destroyed now.
See any stress on this part of the screen? The pictures? It looks like in this spot on the picture there's a slight, possibly a slight tear that's not straight, but it's about right here where it's perfectly straight almost to the bottom.
in right under that window? I wonder if that one stab was like maybe during the altercation.
This guy never snuck out as a kid. You can tell.
No, I didn't touch the window.
No, we just took the screen off this morning.
This, we got here, this window was open.
When we got here, the window was open?
If you're a shorter person going out that window, my legs are long, so a shorter person's going to do more damage ripping it because they're going to have to put full pressure on it.
Oh, somebody, it was not easy for me to get out of there without tearing the screen. I was working at it to not touch it. And anyone that wasn't tall would have easily ripped that.
Been a lightweight person. I mean, just
What about a
You're going to rip it, it's going to go.
what about a trapeze artist or a gymnast or ballerina?
You want me to try to call in? You want me to go in, right?
Sure.
Let's get the lady to do it.
I was going to say, it's a floor. There's nothing to fall on. We're going to grab
Comfortable
on
doing
to.
that or not? Okay.
Like a champ. Look at that. No strain, no stress. But her parents found her missing a couple times growing up. It's like, she's not in her room.
Without getting hurt. Stop her getting out.
We have a new suspect right here, clearly.
Well, it's always over you.
I was trying not to rip the screen when I did it.
24 legs.
We're going to call her Grace. I don't know what her name is, but Grace it is.
It was very tough to cut that in.
So everything between the window and the door looks like some sort of vent, possibly for a... Oh, wow. This takes me back.
Was that Marty's voice that we heard when talking about how the screen was when he saw it?
I believe so.
And just so we're all clear here, that's not the same screen that was taken into evidence, was it?
It's a different screen.
Okay.
Hey, Northwest,
Where were you
don't
stepping
spoil
when
it
you
for
went
us.
in and out
We're going to
of
be
that
over there
room?
at lunchtime. So
I believe I was at the base of the bed.
Okay. Now, watching the two of you go in and out, or the three of you, I should say, as agile as I would say that you were doing that completely sober. Is that accurate?
Correct.
Okay.
Why are you questioning their
The
sobriety?
third person to go in and out, who was that individual?
Evelyn Jones.
And approximately how tall is she?
About 5'4".
Evelyn. Nickname is Grace.
And when you were watching yourself come out of there, did you come out clean or did you kind of have to hop? What did you do?
We're going to be going back to that one.
I was making every
as soon as this
effort
one
to see if I could get in and out of the window without disturbing it, which was not easy, and I caught on the bottom of the screen.
Only one attorney is allowed to question each witness, and they take
When you
turns.
came out of there, do you recall if you created footprints in the dirt?
I don't recall.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Sand, any
Thank-
cross-examination?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Is it Officer Thompson?
That works.
I know it's been a long time with everybody. Everybody's got different titles now. But
So it's true you said you were on vacation when the original call came out on that Monday, right?
Yes.
So you didn't respond to the scene?
Correct.
Okay. When did you make this video?
I believe it was approximately week and a half after the crime scene was found.
And it's true you don't have any background in scene recreation or forensics. Did you take training for that?
I've been to some schools, crime scene investigation with different things.
Anything specific to crime scene recreation?
Not that I recall.
Now, at 7:30, isn't it true that you said anyone that wasn't tall would rip that?
Yes.
I just want to read it. It's true you weren't at the scene when the original investigation was done in the days following, the day it happened and the next day when the scene was being processed.
Correct. I was not there.
Okay.
I like the mic placement.
Now, obviously, you weren't here for other testimony earlier, but so you never saw the screen in the window.
The original?
Yeah.
Correct. I did not see that.
And that's not the original screen. That's a separate screen, right?
Correct.
Where did you guys get that screen?
I believe the management had replaced it, and then Detective Goodman got permission to cut it for what we did with the video.
How many times did you and Detective Goodman, and let me ask you this first, I apologize. Who is the woman in the video?
Evelyn Jones, she was a secretary in our office.
How many times between the three of you did you go in and out of that window with that screen cut there?
I believe Detective Goodman went in and out twice. I went in and out once, and Evelyn Jones went in and out once.
Okay. So a number of times.
Yes.
That's all I have, Your Honor. Thank you, sir.
Quick witness.
Mr. Nelson, do you have any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. Just one question. Mr. Thompson, approximately how tall are you?
6'4".
And Sergeant Goodman was roughly the same height as you?
He's a little taller, about 6'5". Okay.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Sand, anything else?
I just want to reiterate, you said anyone that wasn't tall would rip that at 7:30, correct?
Correct.
That's all. Thank you, Your Honor.
Mr. Nelson, is the officer here by subpoena?
He is, Your Honor. He can be released.
Mr. Sand, do you also have him here by subpoena?
I don't, Your Honor.
All right.
I don't think so. No, we
go
don't.
as you please. Thank you very much. Do you have another witness today, Mr. Nelson?
Do you, Your Honor? Just give me one moment here to get this for the evidence here. State calls Bob Barnard.
Hey, Deanie, if you're in chat today, is there any way you can send me a text on the burner phone?
Officer Barnard, if you'll come up here, please, she'll swear you an oath.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. Over here,
Love
please,
the
then,
clips.
officer. Thank you.
Sing-song voice.
once you're situated, just make sure the mic is aimed at your chin and that the little light is on, please. Go ahead, Mr. Nelson.
Thank you, Your Honor. Could you state your name for the record, please?
Robert Barnard.
And spell your last name?
Barnard.
And are you retired now?
I am.
Okay. Before you retired, what was your career?
Just before, I was a Ward County Sheriff.
Okay. So your career was in law enforcement?
That's correct.
Could you give us a rundown of your experience in law enforcement?
I have to go back a long ways. I started in the military. I went to Minot. In 1976 and 1979, I started at the Minot Police Department. I was on patrol for about 6 years, and then in narcotics as a dog handler for about 4. I spent the rest of my 31 years in criminal investigations as a detective. I was done there in November of 2010. January 1 of 2011, I started at the Ward County Sheriff's Department. The last about 2 years of the 8 years there, I was acting sheriff, and then after that I retired. So in 2019, I retired.
Okay. In June of 2007, you were with the Minot Police Department?
I was.
And just so we're all clear, what was your role at the time with the Minot Police Department?
Detective, investigator.
Okay. Just for clarity's sake, we'll be referring to you as Detective Barnard in this. I know that your last position was sheriff, but we'll call you detective. Is that all right with you?
Sure, that's fine.
Okay. Were you called on the 4th of June of 2007 regarding this incident?
I responded to this incident.
Okay. Tell us about that.
I recall that I was out in a car, City of Minot car. I was working as an investigator in the evening, and I heard a call come over the radio of an unattended death. Ambulance and fire had responded along with some patrolmen, and I don't remember how far away I was from the call. I think I was a little ways away, but I knew that they would need an investigator there because we sent an investigator to every unattended death call, so I started to head that way.
Okay. What happened next?
I arrived on the scene, and I remember seeing a couple of patrolmen there. Chuck LeBoy was the one that I remember talking to primarily. I think Shane Haug was there, and another patrolman who was in training, as I recall. I don't know his name. And he apprised me of the fact that ambulance and rescue had been there and left, and that in the apartment they found a young female who was deceased in a bed, and they felt that it was suspicious.
And what happened next?
He told me that there was a group of people over to, we were standing in a grass area between buildings. I'm trying to visualize this. To my left, and it was described to me that it was the victim's father, Anita Knutson, and some friends of his that he'd come from Butte with to check on his daughter, who was deceased. And I think Marty Annell was standing there, who was described to me as a maintenance man who had found some property from the apartment outside or something.
And what happened next?
I learned that, I think Chuck LeBoy told me that this deceased individual had a roommate, the defendant, and that they lived together in that apartment. And I believe from dispatch records, we found her name, or someone knew her name. I believe maybe Gordon had told the patrol officer what her name was.
Would that be Nichole Rice?
That's
or
correct.
Nichole Thomas at the time?
Nichole Thomas is how I knew her at the time.
Okay.
Yes,
Please
Nichole
continue.
Thomas. And that she worked just a few blocks away from where we were standing. And I said we need to get a hold of her and get her over here as quick as we can so that we can start the process of finding out what's going on here. I remember that the patrolman took me over to an area, an opening in the sort of an enclave in the building where you could look inside the window. And I stayed back from the window a little bit because I was thinking about footprints in the dirt or whatever might be there. I didn't want to disturb anything. And he said the deceased is there, and I remember I couldn't see her. I didn't realize what I was looking at was the victim. And I said, where, Chuck? And he said, right there. And I said, where? And then I moved to the left, and I remember then I could see her hair and could see that there was, it looked like a bundle of clothing and stuff at the end of the bed, but I could see that the victim was there.
So that's where you found, or you and other officers found the victim, Anita Knutson?
That's correct.
Okay. Now I'm just going to back up a moment. You said that it was, you wanted to get the defendant to the scene. Why is that?
Because other than her father, who appeared to be very upset, she was going to be my source of information. I was anxious to see her and talk to her and say, what's going on here? Who's been here? What's going on? I assumed that she'd have more knowledge than anybody.
Because she was the roommate?
Because she was a roommate, yes.
Okay.
And I believe by then I knew that they had been friends or were friends.
Okay.
The victim and the defendant, Nichole.
So who reached out to try to get Nichole to the scene?
Dispatch. I told dispatch to call the place. I think it was called eTelecare. It was a call center. And I said, get a hold of the supervisor. Tell him to tell her there's been an emergency at her apartment and the police need her there right away, and ask them to release her from work.
Did she come immediately?
No. A little bit of time went by, and I thought, and dispatch didn't call me back. And I thought, what's going on here? So I called dispatch. I believe this was on the radio. Said, were you able to deliver the message? And they said yes. They said that they would give her the message. A little more time went by, and I will admit that I was anxious to talk to her, but I think 10, 15 minutes went by again. And I thought, why isn't this, I thought of her as a girl. I thought, why isn't this girl here? What's going on? So I asked dispatch for the number, and I used my cell phone, and I called the business place. I asked for a supervisor, and I said, this is Detective Barnard from the Minot Police Department. We called about releasing someone. We need her. And he, I believe it was a male, interrupted me and said, we gave her the message.
Objection, hearsay, Your Honor.
Sustained.
I was of the understanding that she'd been released and had left.
Approximately how far from
spicy
the scene of the murder was the defendant's employment?
As the crow flies, I think about 3 blocks. As you drive, I think about 6.
So 6
Crows
blocks.
are more efficient.
That take just a minute or two to drive?
A few minutes, yeah.
Okay. Did the defendant come to the scene after the second phone call?
She did.
Okay. And what happened then?
I knew what kind of car she was going to be driving. I believe dispatch told me, I think it was a red Pontiac Grand Prix or Grand Am. And I saw her pull up, and I saw a younger girl get out, and I assumed that that was the defendant, Nichole Thomas. And I was standing there, and she must have obviously known who I was. I had a badge and a gun on. She walked over to me, and I said, are you Nichole? And she said, yes. Best of my recollection, my exact words were, I'm sorry to tell you that your roommate's deceased, and she's been killed. I used the word, she's been killed.
How did the defendant react to that?
She didn't. She was flat. Just no real reaction at all. I didn't know what to expect. I thought, I've done this many times throughout my career. You get different reactions from different people, but she just was kind of flat.
Was that reaction unusual compared to the other times that you've relayed the death of someone?
It was unusual, and I remember thinking, what's going on here? Why doesn't she seem concerned about this?
Did the defendant ask any of the what I would call the newspaper reporter questions, the who, the what, the where, the why, the how?
No, she didn't ask me anything about that, and that I found that very odd as well.
Why did you find that odd?
You know, my experience, if the cops call you up and say, I need to talk to you, for instance, the first question out of somebody's mouth is, why? What do you want to talk to me about? What's this about? What's going on? And the same thing if you notify somebody. I've walked up to doors in the middle of the night and told parents that their son was killed in a car accident, and they say, oh my God, where? Who was he with? What was he driving? Where was this? They always have questions. She had no questions about any of this.
Is that pretty much the only time in your career that was the reaction you got?
That's the only time I recall, yeah.
Okay.
A reaction like that.
What happened next?
I think I took her at some point to a crime van that was there. I mean, other investigators were arriving, Strandberg, Sunbakken, maybe Murphy, I don't recall. Somebody brought a crime van that we had, which had some seats in it so you could sit in there and interview people or talk with people. I took her into that, and I talked to her for a little bit. I think I got a short statement from her. And then I asked her to meet me at the police department so we could talk more, and she agreed to do that. And I think at the same time I asked the patrolman to talk to the victim's father and anybody that was there and asked them if they could come down so we could start the interview process.
So you interviewed her in the police van at the scene and then a second interview at the police department?
As I recall, yeah.
Okay. Were those interviews transcribed?
I believe they were, yes. Yeah, they were recorded.
Permission to approach the witness, Your Honor?
You may.
Now, Detective, I've handed you 2 documents. Do you recognize these documents?
I do.
Are these the transcripts of the interviews that took place between you and the defendant?
Yes, they are. One's indicated it's in the crime van and the other one at the Minot Police Department.
And were those both done on the 4th of June of 2007?
They were. One at 18:11 hours and one at 22:27 hours.
Have you previously reviewed these transcripts?
I did very briefly. I wasn't provided a copy of them.
If you could take a look at those and tell us if they are true and accurate copies of those transcripts.
I want a crime van.
What are the exhibit numbers, please?
I believe it was 16 and 17, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Hey guys, please, no spoilers. We are going to the New Hampshire case at lunch. We'll be picking that up as they're in probably verdict watch to watch the closings. So we don't want spoilers, please. If they're repeat offenses, we're going to time you out for the day.
Please keep in mind it's been 17 years, but these appear to me to be accurate, correct?
So those are true and accurate
As I
copies?
recall them, yes.
State moves to enter Exhibits 16 and 17 into evidence.
Mr. Sand.
We're going to object to their admission, Your Honor. Detective Barnard's here, and the best evidence is his testimony. He said he's reviewed these and the conversations he's had, so we're going to ask that they not be allowed into evidence.
Exhibits 16 and 17 will be received over your objections.
What happened next in the investigation?
Myself and investigators put on gloves and made entry to the apartment and viewed the deceased body and the general appearance of the apartment. I recall that at some point in time, I think from the crime van, we retrieved a large white paper roll that we kept. That was placed on the floor by the bed, and we removed the body. I think myself and Strandberg actually removed the body and placed it on that paper before it was placed into a black body bag. And at that time, I could see injuries to the victim that appeared to me to be stab wounds. And then later the knife was discovered in the bedding.
Now, you said a moment ago appeared to be stab wounds. Is that consistent with other times that you've seen stabbings in your career?
Yes.
Okay. Was it clear that that was what the cause of death was to you?
Well, I'm not a medical examiner, but it was my assumption. Yes, it was a reasonable assumption that these upper body knife wounds were the cause of her death.
What happened next in the investigation?
I think I left the scene, and the rest of the investigators continued to process the scene and collect evidence, take pictures, do all that stuff. And I went to the police department and started interviewing.
And you interviewed the defendant at the police department?
That's correct.
Did you interview other individuals at the police department?
I've interviewed a lot of people at the police department. I don't know who else I did on that specific date.
Okay. What was the next thing that happened in the investigation that you were a part of?
Well, I'm trying to think of the chronological order. Of course, we all met and talked about what was going on, and I remember sharing with the other investigators the what I felt was odd reaction from Nichole, the defendant, about this event. And they talked about retrieving other evidence. I believe a curtain rod, window screen from the maintenance man. We talked about the scene and taking footprints or trying to get prints by the window. We talked about the fact that the door was locked when the father got there, who would have keys to the door. And then we made it, I believe the next day, We asked the defendant, Nichole, to come with us and go through the apartment and look for anything that was out of place, things missing, furniture knocked over, whatever would be out of place, because we assumed that she'd be familiar with the contents of the apartment. And as we talked, I said, watch her, guys, I think is what I said. Let's see what her reaction is when she gets in the apartment. I'm curious to see how she's going to react to this.
And how did she react?
She was cooperative. She went in with us, and she looked around, couldn't find anything. I kept watching her to see if she was going to look in the room. The room was right there, and the door was open. The bed was right there. Of course, everything had been removed from the bed, the bedding and the body and everything, of course, was gone. She never looked. I felt as though she wasn't avoiding it, but she never looked, never asked a question about it, nothing. She did lock in on the fact that I think there was like an end table or a small table there. She had some kind of electronic device, nano or something, I don't remember what it was, that was missing. And she said they took my nano or whatever it was.
Would that have been an iPod Nano?
It could have been an iPad.
iPod.
Remember. Okay, iPod. Okay. I assumed it was some type of device with music on it, and I probably knew the name at the time, but I don't know. And she just kind of fixated on that. She was all of a sudden she was animated. And she was animated about this listening device, and I thought, this is what excites you here? This is what you're concerned about? But she said they stole it. Other than that, she was cooperative and said that everything in the apartment appeared to be just as it was when she last saw it.
So the possibility of losing an iPod got her excited, but not the death of her roommate.
Well, that's the way it appeared to me.
Okay. Now, on the 4th of June, so we're going to go back a day, was there a video taken of the apartment?
Yes.
And were you part in that video?
Yes.
Have you reviewed that video?
No. Well, I have seen it, but not recently.
Okay. Did you just watch this video 2 nights ago?
I saw a portion of it, yes.
Okay. And was that the video that you saw 2 nights ago, the video that was taken that day?
Yes. I didn't see it from beginning to end, but okay. I saw the majority of it, yes.
And you're in that video?
Yes.
Okay. Detective Barnard, I've handed you a disc. Do you recognize that disc?
Yes, I do.
Does it have your initials on it?
It does. It's Exhibit 15, and it has my initials on it.
Is that the disc that you reviewed?
Yes, it is.
Okay, and is that a true and accurate copy of the video that was taken that day?
Appears to be, to me, yes.
Okay. The state moves to introduce Exhibit 15 to end evidence.
Mr. Sand.
No objection, Your Honor.
Claims Exhibit 15 is received without objection.
Permission to publish, Your Honor?
You may. If at all possible, try and get that microphone as close as you can.
Yep, that was my game plan, Your Honor. As soon as I... That's about as close as I can get it.
So there's something on the screen, an error message. It's a lot of stars. Oh, good. We're browsing his hard drive. What does he have? He's got a DVD in, apartment video, play with VLC media player. It just works. Yeah, that's not a guy's dorm. That's not a guy's apartment. 17 types of shampoo. Yep, definitely not guys. That's where you went? Oh, man. Always flush before committing a crime. Or after.
I'm just going to pause the video right there. Detective Barnard, what are we looking at right there?
You're looking at what I would describe as like a Tupperware container with some water in it in the bathroom sink.
Okay, and that was a two bedroom, one bathroom apartment, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so this is the only bathroom?
Yes.
Okay. And whose bedroom are we looking at right now?
I believe I'm not sure.
There's a small body. There's a small child there. Does anyone? Is it a doll? I assume it's a doll. Okay. DVD player, TV, change on the TV, candle. Not the neatest room, but I will cast no stones. That's got to be the defendant's room.
Okay, I'm just going to pause. Was this Anita's room?
That's correct.
And is that Anita that we see on the bed?
Yes.
Whoa.
So, because this is Anita's room, can we assume the other room was the defendant's bedroom?
We can assume that.
Okay.
I thought everything was removed. That was a surprise. There's the screen door. Yep, now we're back. That's the body. Now we cut away.
Now, as we're watching this video, this is before any evidence was collected, anything was disturbed by law enforcement. Is that
That's
accurate?
correct.
Okay. So nothing had been moved at this point?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Is this portion the outside of the apartment?
It is the window. You just depicted the window of the apartment, the bedroom, Anita's bedroom.
Sorry for kind of jumping backwards there. We were talking about the 5th at this point. I went backwards. What happened next in the investigation?
We continued to interview people and talk to a lot of different people. By this time, obviously, the media had news of this incident, so we start collecting tips and leads in the process of taking all the evidence that had been returned or been reclaimed to the state laboratory and collecting DNA evidence from people, et cetera.
Now, you mentioned the media. Was there a fair amount of media interest in this case?
Local media, yeah.
Is it fair to say that there's a fair amount of interest from local media anytime there's a homicide?
Yes.
Okay. When the media was reaching out regarding the death of Anita Knutson, were the full details of the case given to the media?
No, never.
Why is that?
Because you always want to hold back. You don't want to, how do I say, spoil the crowd. I don't want to, if you're someone that I want to talk to that could have information about it, I don't want you to hear about it on the media before you come talk to me. I want your personal knowledge uncorrupted, so to speak, by the media. So you always keep details back that only you would know if you were there, for instance, had you been there.
So, for example, if we were talking about a hit and run and it was a blue sedan, you might not say that it was the color of the vehicle.
Well, in the case of a hit and run, you would, but yeah, exactly. Yeah, you would keep that information back.
I acknowledge that was a terrible example for that, but
that's fine.
Okay. Please continue what happened with the investigation.
We continued to do that. Nichole, the defendant, was asked to come back several times, I think, to be interviewed, make contact with her. I continued to talk to more and more and more people, follow up on tips and leads. Karen Lear is Anita Knutson's aunt. She'd contacted me. I kept in touch with the family. We talked a lot. And as you can imagine, this was a huge deal. We talked about it every day in the office for years.
As part of the investigation, did you speak with Kevin Thomas?
I did.
And who was Kevin Thomas?
He would be Nichole Thomas's father.
And what was the purpose of talking to Kevin Thomas?
To see what he knew about the situation and to try to nail down when Nichole was at the apartment and when she wasn't.
And did Kevin Thomas provide you with a statement?
He did.
Okay.
Jennifer,
what was that
welcome.
statement about?
Well, he gave it to me at the police department. As I recall, he came down, he brought his daughter because we were talking to her, the defendant, Nichole, at the same time. Somebody else talked to her, I didn't at that time. And I think I asked him about the situation in general and dates and times when he thought his daughter was at the apartment and when he thought she wasn't there.
Okay. And what was the impression that you got from Mr. Thomas?
I think, I don't know the man. I think he was trying to be as honest with me as he could, but still protective of his daughter, obviously.
Did you learn anything about his position regarding whether or not he would have known if Nichole had left the farm?
Well, it struck me that he said that she was at home.
Objection, hearsay, Your Honor.
Sustained.
The question was about learning, Your Honor, and yesterday it was established pretty well that if a person learns something, that's not hearsay.
That's not the way you asked the question. That's not the way you started to answer it. So you can rephrase your question. The objection is sustained.
Did you learn anything regarding...
If you learn something, it's not hearsay.
Excuse me. If Mr. Thomas, and this is Kevin
Did he
Thomas,
say that?
would have known about the defendant leaving the farm?
Yes.
And that was learned from Kevin Thomas?
Yes.
Okay. Was Mr. Thomas adamant when he...
Objection, he's testifying, Your Honor.
Sustained.
That's impression, Your Honor.
Not yours, though, Mr. Nelson. So sustained.
Let's go back on the
I'll
hearsay
move
real
along.
quick.
What was the next part of the investigation?
Continue to interview people. Continue to get tips and leads and follow up on them. Continue to contact the lab and talk about fingerprints and DNA evidence and hair and things of that nature.
Defense takes his victory sip.
Now, you left the Minot Police Department approximately December of 2010.
November of 2010.
November of 2010. And then January of 2011, that's when you went to the sheriff's office?
Correct.
Okay. So between June of 07 and November of 2010, were you the primary detective on this case?
I guess so. We all worked on it, but I was the first one on the scene, so I was sort of primary.
Okay. And during that time, were you able to figure out who potential suspects might be?
Yes.
Okay. And who were some of those potential suspects?
Well, I don't know that I call them suspects. We had people of interest.
People of interest. Let's say it that way.
Yeah, people of interest. Devin Hall was a person of interest. It's not unusual in a case like this, especially one that goes on and on, that everybody kind of comes out of the woodwork. People call, they want to help, they want to insert themselves into the case. Some people do. So we had several people like that. There was a custodian from the college that came forward and said that Anita had told him in passing that she loved him. Obviously, he needed to be investigated. People like that, things like that.
Now, all these people that were looked at, did any of them rise to the level of being not just a person of interest, but a suspect?
No.
Why is that?
It just didn't pan out. For instance, the gentleman I talked about from the university, he didn't know where she lived. He couldn't even really describe her to me. He just told me this, and then we later learned that he had a little bit of a learning disability. I interviewed his ex-wife, who said he was never violent, and she wasn't surprised that he was trying to draw some attention to himself. I talked to his boss, who said the same thing. Yeah, he's a custodian here, and I can see where he'd like you to pay attention to him. And then he just never rose to the level of being anyone of any greater suspicion.
Was Nichole Rice, or Nicole Thomas at the time, ever ruled out as a suspect?
No.
And why is that?
Because she was always in the picture. We always had doubts. I was always surprised by her reaction. And then later, during statements, they were a little bit inconsistent on dates and times, where she was, when she was there, etc.
Okay.
We'll be back on that one.
Now, we talked a moment ago about the holdbacks from the media, that we don't tell everything, and you corrected me about a hit and run potentially. Was that also done with potential suspects?
Yeah, I don't remember releasing anything about any potential suspects. The only, if you want me to describe it, there's only one incident in the case that I remember where we put something like that out.
Now, the question I'm asking, or trying to ask here, is, was any of that, the specific sort of details of the case, ever given to the defendant, Nichole Thomas Rice?
No.
Okay. So she would never have known the specific details of the murder?
No. Not from me. Not from the investigators.
Now, looking back to that video that we all saw, in the bathroom sink, you described it as a Tupperware full of water. Is that accurate?
That's correct.
Okay. What happened with that Tupperware full of water?
I believe it was the water was collected by one of the investigators and kept for testing.
Okay. So and that would have been done when everything else was being processed, when Anita was put on the white paper and all that?
Correct.
Okay. So when Nichole was brought to the apartment, that Tupperware full of water would not have been?
It was gone.
Okay. Now, were you on scene when Anita's body was removed from the apartment?
Yes.
Okay. How was that body removed?
The ambulance responded. I mean, the ambulance was there initially, obviously, but then typically we'd call them back later after we were done with the crime scene to transport the body to the morgue. And the body was placed into a black typical body bag and put onto a gurney and taken out to an ambulance.
Now,
sealed, the bag would have been sealed.
So zipped up, like
zipped
we see
up,
in the movies?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, in your career in law enforcement, I would imagine you've seen these bags on multiple occasions?
Yes.
Okay. Are they see-through?
No, they're black, heavy black plastic.
Heavy black plastic, so you can't see what's inside.
I've never seen one that you could see inside of, no.
When the body was removed, would it have been zipped up?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Zipped and sealed in the room before we removed it.
So would have there been any opportunity for the defendant to see the body of Anita other than just knowing that it was in the body bag?
No.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Sand, do you have any cross-examination,
I do,
sir?
Your Honor. Thank you. Thanks for being here, Detective.
He's learned how to use the mic. Please don't forget.
So it's true that you weren't working for the police department when these charges were brought, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. I'm going to go over a couple of things regarding your testimony. You had referred to curtain rods and property outside the apartment. That was the curtain rods and the curtains and curtain rod that had been strewn outside the window and then thrown back in, correct?
I am of the understanding that the curtain rod and curtain were outside of the window, and when the maintenance man found that, I was present when he told me or one of the officers that he threw that back in the room.
Okay. And that's Marty?
I didn't see it outside
No,
of
no.
the room, but I was of the understanding it had been outside.
And the maintenance man was Marty Annell, correct?
That's correct.
Now, when the state was talking to you, you guys were referring to something that happened 2 nights ago. Did you guys meet 2 nights ago?
We did.
Okay, to just go over everything?
Not everything, no.
What'd you go over?
Exhibits that were to be entered.
Okay. So you had some time to kind of catch up on what was going to be presented today?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay. Do you recall doing press releases from the Minot Police Department in 2007 and 2008?
I recall, I don't remember what was on them, but I remember releasing information, sure.
Yeah. Isn't it true that you did a press release in August of 2007? Sent to the, well, I'll call it a press release, Mid-State Organized Crime Information Center. And your conclusion in that press release is that the murder weapon was recovered at the scene. And isn't it true that you were looking for a Native American male in his early 20s, approximately 6 feet tall?
Well, that wasn't a press release, I don't believe.
What was that?
Well, MOCIC, Mid-States Organized Crime Information Center, is a conglomeration of information packet for law enforcement agencies. So you would share the information of a crime that you had with them in hopes that they would disseminate it to agents, law enforcement agencies that might have similar information and be able to contact you and say, hey, we had the same thing happen in our town or something.
But you didn't send them something looking for a 5'5" blonde girl. You sent them something looking for a 6-foot Native American man in his early 20s.
That's correct. That's somebody we were trying to locate at that time. You're correct.
Right. Okay. And that the murder weapon was recovered at the scene.
Right.
Okay. On October 7th, did you do a news release?
I'd have to see it. I don't remember.
I'll let you take a look.
A lot of people aren't going to remember because it's been nearly 20 years.
Yep, this appears to be from me, and it is dated October 7th, 2008.
Could you take a look at the contents?
No objection here?
Yes, I recall that.
Thank you, sir.
Mm-hmm.
In the press release, it's true that you're looking for a 200-pound male, 6'3" to 6'4".
Someone who was described to us like that, yes.
Okay. Running from the area of the homicide.
Correct.
Okay. How tall do you think Nichole is?
I don't know. 5'6"? I don't know.
Female?
Female, obviously.
Not 6'3", 6'4"?
No.
Not obviously Native American?
No.
Okay. In fact, in this news release, it's true that you had a local artist do a rendering.
Yeah, I called the university art department because we didn't have an artist available, and they sent me an art student.
Okay.
Freelance student.
Did that rendering look like Nichole Rice?
No, not at all.
Or did it look like a Native American, 6'3", 200-pound man?
It looked like a 200-pound man. I don't know if he looked Native American to me, but he looked like a 200-pound man.
I'd get your money back then.
I've read through a lot of evidence in this case, reports, things created by law enforcement. I've gone through all of it. My whole office has, because this case is important to us.
Is there a question here, Your Honor?
I'm just about to hit it.
Mr. Nelson, it's his cross-examination.
Isn't it true that you concluded
Let's
that easy access could be made through the bedroom by cutting the screen and going in?
I wouldn't say easy access.
You wouldn't?
No.
If I showed you a report, might that help you a little bit?
I'll review it.
Thank you, sir.
It's his cross-examination. We should probably just make a collection of all his hammer statements. Wrong. Just like set it to music for MC Hammer. Do 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 do. Wrong. Like that. Phil, 2AO Toys. I'm not telling you what you should do, but it's just.
I'm just asking to
waiting for you.
I appreciate it.
Sure.
And I know it's been a long time, but if you could think as hard as you could, I'd really appreciate it because it's important, sir. Now,
think hard.
Did you also conclude, it's true you concluded, that you speculated that someone exiting through that window had caught the curtain and the curtain rod?
That was my most reasonable assumption at the time, yes.
Okay. On their way out of the window.
It would seem to me that the most reasonable conclusion an average person could reach, knowing what I knew at the time, that if they exited through the window, it was inside out.
And I'm just confused because you're telling me that Devin Hall was never a suspect in the case, but you're doing press releases, you're sending letters to or crime agencies looking for this kind of person. Isn't that true?
That's correct. Two different individuals.
Now, isn't it true that during the course of your investigation you discovered that there was a Native American male, late teens, early 20s, 200 pounds, 6'2", running in a white t-shirt and shorts?
Did we discovered that person? No,
No. Did you conclude? Did you discover that in your investigation?
A woman came to us.
What was that woman's name?
I don't recall. She was with her child. She told us, and I have not read the report, so I'm best of my recollection. She was entering an apartment building to the north of the crime scene and saw a man, the description that you gave, about 200 pounds, could have been Native American male, running in a northerly direction. She felt that was concerning because he seemed to be running very hard. So we had the drawing done from her description. We made the decision to disseminate that to the public in hopes that we would get a tip or a lead. And a gentleman came forward and said, I think I'm that guy because I was running there at that time, and I believe she probably saw me. He, in my opinion...
I'm going to stop you there, sir. So you continued to send these out, because we're talking about a press release that I just showed you from 2008. October 7th of 2008. How long after the murder was that?
I'm sorry?
October 7th, 2008, the news release we went.
Well, from June of 2007 to
over a year.
October 8, yeah.
And you're still sending press releases out looking for this Native American?
Yeah, I don't know when that information came to us. It seemed like it was later, but I don't recall.
Over a year and a half later?
I don't know.
Some guy came in and said, that's me?
No, I don't recall when the woman came forward and gave us the information and description of the male she saw running.
Appreciate that. Do you recall in the course of your investigation that you found out that there was dirt or possibly blood on that person's clothes?
No. She described a stain on his shirt.
I'm going to have to show you again your report here, sir. I'll have you look. I mean, it's the first paragraph, but you can start here and just kind of get. You'll know when you're there.
Defense has a unique style to him, and it is sort of abrasive.
That's her description, yep. I can read it if you wish.
It's okay. So that's correct?
She described it as a stain on his T-shirt, possibly blood or dirt.
Thank you. You know what Devon Hall is?
Yes.
In fact, he's referenced quite a bit in your report, isn't he?
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
How did you end up interacting with Devon Hall?
John Klug from the police department called me and said, Bob, you should know the last night patrol dealt with a Native American kid on Sioux Street. He had entered an apartment and was, I think, hiding in a closet in near a girl's room or in a girl's room, and was, I think, chased by the father and maybe a neighbor, and eventually captured.
And it's true he had a knife on him, right?
He had apparently taken a knife from the kitchen, had it in his pocket, back pocket, I believe.
He had a knife on him, right?
Right. That he'd taken from the apartment.
Sure.
Sure.
How long after Anita's murder was this?
I don't recall.
A couple of days?
Was it a couple? Yes, I believe it was.
Okay.
Just a couple days.
Did you discuss what happened with him?
Yes.
Did you interview him?
Yes.
Now, it's true you met with the FBI on this case as well, isn't it?
I'm sorry?
It's true that you met with the FBI in this case, isn't it?
We talked with him, yes.
Yeah.
Well, there was an FBI agent that helped us, yes.
You, Strandberg, and Dale Meixner?
Yes.
And it's true that in your conversations, the conclusions that you guys met was that this was Devon Hall that did this?
No.
That's what the FBI concluded in the conversation.
It was the FBI's opinion, yes.
Federal Bureau of Investigation.
Right.
Devon Hall did it. Not a suspect, though, right?
No, they said that he was a suspect. I don't know that they said he was responsible
You
for
said
the
he
crime.
wasn't a suspect.
Right.
What was that sigh? Karina, good to have you here.
Do you know where Devon Hall's from?
He was from Montana. Was it, I don't know where he's from originally.
I think Fort Peck Reservation.
Yeah, I think it was Poplar.
Yeah. Now, when the state was asking you questions, you talked about a variety of suspects that you kind of put in the same category, isn't that right?
People of interest, yeah.
One was a custodian with a learning disability, as you described it, who said that Anita said she loved him, right?
He told us that.
Yeah. And you said that guy's name along with Devin Hall. You said custodian, Devin Hall, correct?
I believe I did, yeah.
Okay. Did you have as much evidence regarding this custodian as you did with Devin Hall?
No.
FBI telling you he did it?
Well, the FBI didn't. The FBI didn't tell us he did it. But you're correct. No, we did not have as much evidence as we did with.
Because I'm just concerned that they're getting lumped into the same category. Is that a fair concern of mine?
Sure. If I were the defense attorney, I would be concerned about that.
I appreciate it.
A little snark back and forth.
I'm going to go back to one of my earlier questions. These charges weren't brought while you were at the PD's office, were they?
I did not charge the defendant, no.
But you're here today in your retirement, correct?
That's correct.
You've been brought back here.
Subpoenaed by you and the prosecutor.
That's true. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Twice over. Bri Bear, thank you very much. 11 months on the jury. Thank you. Thank you.
So with all the work that you did, Detective Goodman did, I believe it's Detective Strandberg, trying to keep everybody straight, no charges were brought.
Not up until the point I left the police department, no.
No charges were brought against Nichole.
No.
No further questions. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Nelson, do you have any redirect?
I do, Your Honor.
You may proceed.
Just going to go back over a few things. That runner from the scene, that person was identified?
Yes.
How was that person identified again?
He came in. He came to the police department, I think, with his wife and said, I've seen this. I've been thinking about it. I assume he saw it in the media. Maybe he told us that. I don't recall. And he said, I think that was me because I was running there at that time, and I meet the description.
And was there any reason to doubt him?
The general description, I should say.
Was there any reason to doubt him?
No.
Okay. And you are aware of the reenactment video with Detectives Goodman and Thompson trying to go in and out?
You were talking about the window, yes.
Yes. Have you seen that video?
I have.
When you're watching that, did it look like it was easy to get in and out?
No, it was hard to get in and out of the window.
Okay. Now, a moment ago on cross-examination, you used the phrase "at the time," and then you were kind of cut off. What did you mean when you were talking about "at the time"?
I don't remember what it was in reference to.
It was in reference to the knowledge that you had as far as suspects.
Purple Haze, thank you. 11 months as well. 15
well, I'm
months.
still
sorry.
not sure. But if you're talking about Devin Hall, it was...
It was about the. Let me back up. It was about the curtain rod and the curtain. You said that at the time it made sense that it would have been gone out. What did you mean by that?
Well, you only got out of a window or you left a door. There was no other way to exit the building. And if the curtain rod was truly outside, as I was told it had been, I didn't see it outside, then to me it was reasonable to assume that someone could have left through that window and dragged that curtain rod with them as they left.
Okay. Now, Mr. Sand was asking you about the fact that we met a couple nights ago. You're retired. Is that accurate?
Yep.
Where do you spend your winters?
Arizona.
It's probably a little nicer in Arizona than it is when it's 30 below in Minot.
It was when I left on March 10th.
Okay. So were you in Minot over the last few months to sit down and prepare for the case?
No, we left December 16th, I think.
So that was pretty much the first time in the last few months to sit down face to face and see those things.
The only time I've sat down face to face with you guys.
Okay. Now, you mentioned on cross-examination that what the FBI had to say.
Correct.
What information did the FBI have?
They had the initial information that we had about Devin Hall, that he was in an apartment, he was chased, he was a juvenile, he was a Native American male, he was arrested. That was all. The FBI was there to try and help us any way they could after a lot of discussion, because the FBI doesn't become involved in local murder cases typically. So we sent them this packet of information, and I can't tell you as I sit here exactly what was in there. and they reached the conclusion that of the information that we sent them, Devon Hall was the most likely suspect. And I would have to say, based on the information we sent them, I would have concluded the same thing.
But sitting here today, you have a different conclusion.
Yeah, because I have additional knowledge. They didn't sit across the table from him in an interview. I don't believe they saw the video of him later. I have information they didn't have.
Okay. And with that extra information that was unavailable to the FBI at the time, you have a different conclusion.
Calls for speculation, Your Honor.
Overruled.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
That was a weak objection.
Now, there was
like,
testimony
okay,
about a break-in that Devon Hall had done on Sioux Street.
Correct.
All right. You know where Sioux Street is and why not?
I definitely do.
Okay. We've got a map up here. Permission for the witness to come down for demonstrative, Your Honor?
Yeah, as long as you give him a mic. Yes.
Yep. We'll share this one.
Make sure you share it then. Thank you, Mr. Nelson.
Hammer of justice. Make sure you share.
I don't think Colette trusts you.
Testing.
Yay. We got a, what is that? Is that a Sennheiser? It's a nice one. Don't rip our map. We spent $6 getting this printed down at Office Depot. Be very careful with it. We splurged and got it printed on oversized poster paper.
Now, Detective Barnard, this is 2B. This is more of a blow-up of the, what section of Minot is this?
Well, this would be North Broadway. The airport's here on my right. This is Burdick Expressway. The fairgrounds would be to the east. So the northern part of Minot.
Is Sioux Street on this map?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Now, I've had a sticky note here where I wrote Devon Hall on it. You see that?
I do.
Can you use that to point out where Sioux Street is on this map?
Your Honor, may I go up there and take a look at what they're doing?
Yes, you may.
Yes, come on up. We are playing a version of Pin the Tail on the Donkey.
So that's where Sioux Street is?
That's correct.
Okay.
No winners.
And is that a fair ways away from where the murder took place, Anita?
Other side of town, or southeast, yes.
Okay, different quadrant of the city entirely.
Yes.
And people don't travel.
Can he take a seat?
Yes. You can go back to this.
See if we got a mic drop moment. There's the mic drop. Devon Hall. Or Dev Hall.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Sand, do you have any recross?
Just briefly, because we brought up interviewing Nichole on redirect. Every time you called Nichole, did she come in and talk to you?
Your Honor, I didn't bring up on redirect any interview with the defendant.
That's correct, Mr. Sand.
I beg to differ, Your Honor.
Well, my notes say that he did not bring up Nichole on the redirect. So I'm in agreement with the state for that.
I guess I have one other question. It's an evidentiary issue we can talk about after, Your Honor.
Then you can ask that question.
Go ahead.
The additions of the arrows with Devon Hall's name, are those going to be part of evidence, or the additions that have been put onto the map?
I'm unsure what you're talking about, Mr.
That's because you haven't seen the picture.
Maybe we could talk
You're
about
saying that the sticky has an arrow on it?
Yes, with
the name Devon Hall on it?
yes, yep.
My understanding is that was the sticky that Mr. Nelson gave the officer to place where Devon Hall was found
Yes, sir.
in the apartment.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you have a question about that?
I'm just wondering if it's part of evidence now.
Yes.
Okay. It wasn't offered and introduced, and that's the only reason I have an issue with it, Your Honor.
The state would offer that as evidence, Your Honor. It was a demonstrative.
All right, Mr. Sand, do you
Well,
object?
I object. It was an addition to this, Your Honor, and it wasn't presented properly, so I'm going to ask that it not be allowed in.
All right, I agree with you. Do you object to that offer?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. over your objection, Mr. Stan, the court will allow for that sticky to be part of that exhibit on 2B, which is the blow-up.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, that was funny.
Do you have another question?
All right. I agree with you, but I'm going to allow it over objection.
Is Officer Barnard here by subpoena?
He is, Your Honor. He can be excused from the state subpoena.
Mr. Sand?
No.
We do have him under subpoena, but we're in contact with him as well, Your Honor. So.
All right. All right, you're excused from the state subpoena, but not the defense. Thank you. Thank you. Whatever you have needs to stay. Thank you.
Don't
leave those up there.
Don't take the microphone.
Thank you.
It's not a
I want
memento.
to make sure it didn't walk away. Thank you very much.
Oh.
All right, the time is 3 minutes before 10. Any objections if we take a short break?
No objection, Your Honor.
Sam?
No, sir.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, again, it's a couple minutes before 10. We'll be in recess till 10:15. Once again, I'll read you my admonition. Please do not converse with any witnesses, any party, or any attorney in this case concerning any matter. Direct any questions or discuss any problems that you may have with the bailiffs. Do not read about, listen to, or view news accounts of this trial. Until you retire to deliberate your verdict, please do not discuss the case. Do not allow anyone to discuss the case with you. And do not use the internet or other electronic technology in any attempt to learn information about this case or communicate with your family, friends, or anyone else about this case. Please do not form nor express any of your opinions about this case until I've given it to you for your deliberations. Once again, I hope to repeat this instruction at each recess. If I fail to do so, it still applies to you throughout the trial. We'll be in recess until 10:15.
All right, recess till 10:15. Now, we don't have enough time to follow everything that's happened in the other case really quickly, so we're not going to pick it up yet. 49. Okay, but we can jump to the very beginning and play a little bit. So this is, I don't like doing this because we haven't done a portal. We're going to jump back over and watch just briefly. Let's see, where's our super source? Super source is going to be here.
The jury is no longer present. Ms. Sorg, anything before we break?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Sand?
No, Your Honor.
All right, we'll be in recess till 10:15. Thank you.
Okay. We're going to go right here. 3 is going to be camera 3. We're going to play very quickly what happened this morning in the New Hampshire trial. So I'll have to... Nope. Hang on. Hold it. You need audio. I can hear just fine, but you can't. That would never work. Sounds, HDMI.
Those legal matters having now been concluded at the bench, the state is denying that the court, is denying
the beginning of the day,
denying the defendant's motions at this point, and we are ready to proceed with closing arguments. Correct?
Correct.
All right. So we will bring out the jury.
Okay. As they bring out the jury, Lucy Sparkles, welcome to the gallery. Thank you very much. This is closing arguments in the New Hampshire case. We're just going to listen to the first couple minutes until we have a break, and there is a break, so you can see what happens here. That should take us all the way up through the end of this 15-minute break we have with the other court. We're going to jump ahead. Jury's here.
Gentlemen, nice to see you all back. So as I explained to you yesterday, we are now at the portion of the proceedings where counsel for each side gives you their closing arguments. And so we will start with Attorney Sisti when you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, folks. I think I want to start by telling you a little bit about closing arguments. But before I do that, I want to thank you, and Jason wants to thank you. It's a tough case to sit through. Tough evidence. The videos are tough. They're critical, but they're tough.
You saw a pretty gory video, a scene video where there was some medical work done on the alleged victim on the 4th of April, 2024. That's tough to take. I mean, we all know that. But we do hope that you hold to your oath and that you objectively look at this evidence. Okay? I mean, it's really important. I don't know how to stress it. I don't get to speak to you again after this. I mean, I'm handing Jason off to you this morning. That's what I'm doing. He's totally out of my control now. Okay?
He's out of control.
We trust you. Okay? We trusted you when you all said you can give him a fair trial. He trusts you. And it's quite a process. I'm sure that you look back at this process years from now and say it's pretty impactful. I'll tell you something else. You can kind of exhale a little bit because there's a rule. I mean, we can't go on forever. There's a rule in this state where I can only use up as much as an hour. The prosecution can only use up as much as an hour. Then the court instructs you, then it's all yours. Just like the view that you took control of, that was your view. Okay. This is going to be your case. You're going to own
this up.
This one's yours. You take as much time as you need to deliberate when you get it, and you go over it carefully, okay? Review all the evidence, and come to a reasoned conclusion. All I'm going to try to do during my 1 hour is to try to guide you as to where we're going, okay? What we're doing. And from the very beginning of this case, when I first had the opportunity to discuss this case at all with you, it hinges on self-defense. And let's just cut right to it. You know it, okay? You know it, and you feel it in your bones now. And you've seen it on video. I want to start filling in the blanks for you and giving you an overview on what this thing's all about. Because you're going to get instructions, and they are quite helpful, and there'll be a handout.
There'll be a test.
A little bit during the closing, but you're going to have it, and you'll be able to go over it and use it as long as you want. And what the jury instructions are, quite frankly, they're like a guidepost. They're the law. It's like a roadmap. And you plug in the facts, and you use this law, and you're going to come to the right decision. That's the whole idea here. Now let's talk about what went down here, okay? And really the case starts before April 4th. It actually starts a few months before April 4th. And a few months before April 4th, none other than Kyle Violet, for some insane, crazed reason, approaches Jason while Jason's minding his own business. And this is going to be a repeating theme, by the way. While he's minding his own business, doing work on his house, an enraged, delusional Kyle Violet approaches him and does what? Threatens him for no reason at all. For some paranoid, made-up reason. And the paranoid, made-up reason back in October of 2023 was that Jason was informing on him to the police, which has no basis in reality.
Excuse me, can someone help us? Oh, yeah. Someone call 911.
Can the jury be removed, please? Okay. Should we clear the rest of the courtroom, perhaps? Or, the public, I mean. I believe 911's already been called. Thank you.
So that was the defendant's dad collapsing in court this morning, a medical emergency, and left the courtroom in an ambulance. Whoa, whoa! Just at the very beginning of the defense's hour and I think they're going to take every minute of that hour. That happened, and then they're in break for quite a while. The break, they break for about, what was it? About an hour at that point. When they come back, hang on a second. When they come back, we'll pick that up starting at lunchtime. But in the meantime, we're going to be going back to the other trial in North Dakota. We don't have time to follow all of it, so we're going to pick up where they left off. I don't know if he's okay. It sounded like he's at the hospital and getting treatment. That's the understanding I had. But can you imagine being on the jury there, and hearing that? Just being. Oh, that's weird. Had weird audio going. Sorry. Being on the jury and hearing that happen, it made me jump when I heard it. All right, we're gonna be going back to North Dakota, and our counter here in North Dakota. Sorry, I just barely changed it to be 73 because we had 73 cursive words. Now we have to go back to 27 hammers. Reset the counter to 27. And we'll be back on 2. There we go. All right. Jason did not look good. He was really, really shaken, visibly. He did the right thing. If he had run back there to help, I think the bailiffs would have shot him. He is in custody. He can't do that. So we don't know. We're waiting for updates to see what exactly the outcome is. But that's what happened. That's what happened this morning. Okay. Let's see. We've got back to the hammer of justice here. Just one second. Yeah, playing it back. The defendant was breathing heavily, looked concerned. He was breathing heavily, his shoulders up and down, eyes moving quickly, and he was looking back to the area where his family was as well. So that was Jason's dad that collapsed in court or had a medical issue. There you go. All right, as we're continuing in North Dakota. The spice is great. I have to say, my understanding of the hearsay rule is a little bit different than what I've seen play out in North Dakota, where they basically, the judge is allowing them to say nearly verbatim what the person said, as long as you say, this is what I learned. And it seems to be a workaround to the hearsay rule. The state tried to use that rule quite liberally today, and the judge struck it down. But yeah, we'll finish. No spoilers in the Jason case. We'll just leave it where it is. We're going to pick it up on lunch and follow from there on. But please, no spoilers from that one if we can help it. But I love the judge's ruling. Judge Hagar with the hammer of justice is doing a phenomenal job. Any other questions? We've got about 5 minutes before the judge comes back here. Eddie, you're in a couple different courts. Obviously, Canton doing the Karen Reed thing. Hearings going on there. A couple hearings, I think, back to back. The podcast tonight as well. Okay, we have two rules. If you say spoiler or if you give a spoiler, you get muted because we don't want chat to have a bunch of no spoilers. That's my job. The mods and I can take care of that. So let's keep the word spoiler out of chat, because then people just get caught up on something that may not have even happened. All right, they start closings and Jason. Yes, we were just watching, Carter. We just watched the first few minutes before they broke for an hour when abruptly there was a medical emergency in the court where Jason's dad, the defendant's dad, had a medical emergency, was taken out by ambulance. So we'll be jumping back to that when they pick back up here as soon as this court breaks for lunch, which will be in about an hour and a half or so. So we're going to be jumping back and forth all day long. But when we do jump back, we're going to be probably portaling. And we'll be watching on 1.25 speed as well. All right. Anything else to talk about in the meantime? I know we've got a lot of new documents that dropped in the Brian Kohberger case. I'm looking at those. A lot of we got a little more information about the knife, the knife, at least the knife sheath, and matched up the dates of when he purchased the knife from Amazon and things like that, or a knife that was that had the sheath that matched the one they found. That's going to be quite telling. I think there's going to be a point in the trial where basically the state's going to say, "Where's the knife, Brian? Where's the knife? Where's your knife sheath? Did you sell it? Do you have an eBay receipt? Do you have somebody who said, 'Oh yeah, you traded it for 2 marbles and a Slurpee'?" We need some sort of excuse for why the knife's gone. All right, lots in the BK case, a ton. Discord has all of that. Thank you very much, Samantha. When do we get our lunch? You're going to have to eat at your desk today, Lacey. No lunch is offered. I'm hoping Mrs. R.A. will bring me some food. Stacy's like, I mean, it was a Slurpee, It's worth the knife. The map of where BK had been was crazy. All this stuff's going to come out. Oh, it's going to be so much fun to put all this together. Yeah, well, we're going to be busy all day. Fell asleep last night reading the BK stuff. I have to confess, I fell asleep last night watching someone play DayZ, which is a zombie apocalypse first-person shooter game. And so you can guess how my dreams went as I had earbuds in listening to somebody getting attacked by zombies. And this is after, mind you, this is after the bird. It's 1:45, and for half an hour, a mockingbird had been sitting outside my window singing every song it knew at full volume in the pitch black. It was dark. And I may have threatened to get another cat at that point. The cat specifically trained to eat mockingbirds. I don't know why it chose my window and why in the middle of the night. I thought they sleep at night, but did it sing "You Gotta Keep 'Em Separated"? No, it did not know that song. It's older tunes, mostly oldies. It did the it did that one. What else? It did the car alarm. It did that one. It did a lot of songs. They're up before dawn. They were up all night. Yeah. At least it wasn't an owl. An owl outside your window, I guess, is a bad sign. But no owls. Let the bodies hit the floor. Let them. No, not that song either. Good guesses. Is Harper Lee trying to contact you? Yes, they're writing the sequel to the book. I'm going to be Atticus Finch descendant, I guess. Nightbirds are called nightbirds for a reason. And if that mockingbird don't sing, take the bird and ring his. How does that song go? I think isn't that Eminem's version? Purple Haze, yes, $120,000 bond that the defendant is out on. She's out on bond, and she has retained her lawyers. They're not public defenders. I have a pair of great horned owls who live in the tree in front of my house, right in front. So you're saying the birds drove him crazy. As long as the birds eat the cockroaches outside, they can stay. But that's the only thing. She posted bond 30 minutes after she was arrested. I've heard that the defendant in this case, Nichole Rice, obviously her name was not Rice before, she got married like 3 months ago. And I think her husband is in court behind her, possibly the guy with red hair, if I'm getting the correct information. Owl built a nest in our attic while we built the house. It got closed in. Its mate brought dead mice for a week before we found out the owl was inside and let it out. Oh, wow. I have 17 bird feeders and 5 hummingbird feeders plus 2 trough bird seed feeders. I think I have a problem. Super T, this morning I did take, now that I know what real pecans taste like, thanks Josh, I appreciate that. I took the old ones, don't tell Mrs. R.A., that she bought at Sam's Club, and I spread them out for the squirrels. Outside. I don't think they're fit for human consumption now that I know how a fresh pecan tastes. Let's see. Squirrels have a nut allergy. Good. Maybe they'll stop trying to nest in my attic. Maybe she was married when Cold Justice filmed The Pandemic. I heard it was just a couple months. Maybe she got married 3 months before she was arrested or something. That might make more sense. I think there's a 3 months in there somewhere. Okay, we're back.
All right, go back on. All right, we're back on the record. The time is 19 minutes after 10. The jury is not present. Parties are present. Anything before I bring the jury in? Ms. Sorgan.
Nothing from the state, Your Honor.
Mr. Sand.
No, Your Honor.
Please bring the jury in.
The drapes are still crooked. This camera is possibly more crooked today than it was initially. Carol, I'm sorry. When I see it, I just can't unsee it. I saw it early on in this trial.
Thank you very much. Please have a seat. Ms. Sorgan, do you waive roll call of the jury?
State waives roll call, Your Honor.
Mr. Sand, do you waive roll call of the jury?
We do, Your Honor.
All right, then, Mr. Nelson, Ms. Sorgan, do you wish to call your next witness?
State calls Dale Meixner.
Dale Meixner is the next. It's funny that they have this rule in North Dakota that they have to roll call the jury or waive it. Why don't they just change the law if everyone just keeps waiving it?
Ms. Meixner, I'll have you come up here. She will swear you an oath first, please.
Don't trip.
You solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do. And have a seat over here, please, sir.
What was the judge doing with his jaw? It looked like he was doing figure eights.
Once you're situated, just make sure the mic's kind of aimed at your chin, and then make sure the light is on. Okay, you may go ahead, Ms. Sorgan.
Thank you, Your Honor. Would you please state your name and spell your last name for the record?
Wow.
Dale Meixner, Mainxner.
M-A-I-X.
Are you currently employed?
I am not. I'm retired.
Okay. When did you retire?
I retired from the State Bureau of Criminal Investigation in June of 2016.
Now, you said you retired from the State Bureau of Criminal Investigation. What is that?
The State Bureau of Criminal Investigation is an agency under the North Dakota Attorney General's office, and our main duties are assisting local agencies in whatever investigations they may run into.
Are you an agency of origin?
Excuse me?
Are you the first agency on the scene for investigations?
Normally, the local agencies are the first individuals on the scene, and they in turn determine if they're going to need additional assistance, at which point they would contact our office.
Okay. At the time that you retired in June of 2016, how many BCI agents were there throughout the state? If you know.
I would say approximately 30.
And that's for the entire state of North Dakota?
That's correct.
Okay. How are your assignments divvied up in BCI?
Each agent has a supervisory agent that, for each area, I'm sorry. I worked out of Minot, so I was mainly responsible for the northwest corner of the state, even though I did work over the remainder of the state at times. We had some agents that worked mainly drug investigations, and then we had some like myself that mainly worked investigations other than drugs.
Okay. What kind of investigations did you typically handle?
I typically handled anywhere from burglary, business burglaries, to sexual assaults, to child abuse, to homicides, to suspicious deaths that turned out to be suicides, anything along that line.
Everything but
How
shoplifting.
long had you been with BCI before you retired?
I had been with the Attorney General's office for 37 years.
Okay. Now, you didn't necessarily state that you were with BCI that whole 37 years. Can you explain why that was?
When I was first hired by the Attorney General's office, which was in 1979, a new unit had just been started, which was called the Drug Enforcement Unit. I was one of the first 7 agents that were hired to staff that unit. Okay. After that, I spent 5 years on the Drug Enforcement Unit, approximately 10 years on the Drug Enforcement Unit before we were combined with the State Bureau of Criminal Investigation, so we became one unit. Both of us had been under the Attorney General's office, but they felt it was better to combine the two of us, so we all were one unit at that time.
Okay. And approximately when did that combination happen?
I want to say at the end of the 1980s, probably 1988, 1989.
Okay. Had you worked anywhere in law enforcement before you joined under the Attorney General's office?
Yes, I did.
Where was that?
I started my law enforcement career here in Grand Forks. I was hired by the Grand Forks Police Department in 1974, and while on the police department, the first 2.5 years I spent in uniform, and I was transferred over to the investigative division and worked mainly drug work. And then for the last year, I was promoted to sergeant and went back to uniform.
Okay. So we've heard some about your experience. Can you tell us about your education and training?
I graduated from the University of North Dakota in 1974 with a degree in business and public administration, dealing mainly with police administration. While employed in law enforcement, I compiled approximately 3,600 hours of specialized training.
And what was that specialized training in?
That's a ton of hours.
The initial training, of course, was the basic training that all law enforcement goes through. Following that, there was training in photography, firearms, of course. Once I started with the Attorney General's office, I got further training in homicide investigations, arson investigations, sexual assault investigations, again, more photography, a lot of training in interviewing. I attended the DEA National Academy, the FBI National Academy, and an arson academy.
During the course of your career, approximately how many homicide investigations have you participated in?
I would guess somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 homicide investigations, give or take, that I had some part in. That may have not been the actual investigation. It may have been crime scene processing, reviewing investigations, things along that line. But I feel that somewhere in the neighborhood of 50.
Okay. Do you recall assisting the Minot Police Department with the murder of Anita Knutson?
I do.
Okay. And are you aware of how Minot PD reached out to BCI?
I believe they had contacted the BCI office, and during that first week of the investigation, I was not present. I was on leave and on the eastern part of the state, but there were, I believe, 2 or 3 other BCI agents that assisted during that week.
And do you recall who those BCI agents were?
Mike Marcus would have been one of them, and other than that, I wouldn't know.
When did you become involved with the investigation?
I became involved in the following week, the following Monday, which I believe would have been like the 10th or 11th of June.
And what was your involvement?
At that time, the police department requested that I conduct follow-up interviews with some of the individuals that they had initially interviewed.
Okay. And do you recall who they asked you to do follow-up interviews for?
One of them was Jose Rodriguez, another was a Michael Van, and then Nichole Thomas at the time.
And did you conduct those interviews?
I did.
Commissioner Prochotter?
You may.
Agent Meixner, I'm just going to ask you to hold on to that for a second because I'm going to back up a second here. You conducted those follow-up interviews in June of 2007. Did you have any subsequent involvement with this case after that?
Yes, I conducted a number of interviews in this investigation up through approximately 2010, 2011.
Okay. And specifically drawing your attention to May 6, 2010, did you conduct another interview?
Yes.
And who was that of?
That was of Nichole Thomas.
Okay. I'm going to direct your attention to what's been marked as State's Exhibit 19 for identification, 30-page document. Do you recognize that?
Yes, this was shown to me before.
Okay. And what is that document?
This is a transcript of the interview that I conducted on May 6th of 2010 of Nichole Thomas.
Okay. And your interviews, when you did these, were recorded, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And for the purpose of being transcribed later?
Yes, if need be. They weren't all transcribed, but if they needed to be transcribed, they were.
Okay. And I think we've indicated this was a 30-page transcript, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Would you expect to remember all 30 pages of what you talked about with somebody if it wasn't transcribed?
No, I would not.
And you've reviewed this. If you also reviewed the audio recording that transcript was made from?
I have.
Okay. And this is true and accurate, is that correct?
You told me it was, so I haven't been able to compare it to the transcript.
Objection.
Or to the recording.
Okay.
You told me.
Do you have any reason to believe that it's not?
I do not.
Okay. State moves to introduce Exhibit 19.
Mr. Sand.
Your Honor, I'm going to maintain my last objection from the last transcripts. It'll be the same as the best evidence rule. I assume the court will have the same ruling, but I want to put it on the record that I do object, and I believe Mr. Meixner's here, and the best evidence will be his testimony.
The court will receive Plaintiff's Exhibit 19 over your objection.
Thank you. And Agent Meixner, as you indicated, you wouldn't be expected to remember that. Is that correct?
No, especially after this amount of time.
Okay. How long ago was that interview?
Well, that was 15 years ago.
Okay. And you've since retired, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. At the time that you retired, had all of your cases closed?
Yes, I believe they had. I believe this is my only open case, at least open homicide that I was involved in.
Okay. What would you expect other officers to do with open cases when you retire?
Well, they become, especially with homicides, they become what's known as cold cases. And as in the past I had been responsible for investigating other cold cases, I would think that someone would continue investigating this case in the future until it's resolved.
I have no more questions for Agent Meixner.
Mr. Sand.
Just a couple of brief ones, Your Honor.
All right.
We're waiting.
Agent Meixner, did you have a chance to review your reports before you came in?
Did you have a chance to review your reports before you came?
Yes.
Okay.
His mic's off. The judge is about to jump on him.
Is it true that on April 14th, 2009, there was a conference call you were on with the FBI?
Is it true there was a conference call you were on with the FBI on April 19th, 2001? Something.
But the result of that was that call was that the FBI felt that there needed to be more research done into the subjects from Wolf Point because of the knife.
I recall that in my report. That's what it said.
That's all I got. Thank you.
Any other questions, Ms. Sorgan?
Just briefly, Your Honor. Agent Meixner, that meeting conference call occurred October 14th, 2009. Is that right?
I believe that's when it occurred.
Okay. And so the information that was conveyed to the FBI would have been current through what date?
Up until that point when we spoke with them.
Okay. So if information came after that date, the FBI wouldn't have been privy to it. Is that correct?
Not to my knowledge, unless someone else notified them.
Okay. Thank you. Nothing further.
Mr. Sand, anything else?
Nothing else, Your Honor.
Ms. Sorgan, is this witness under subpoena?
He is.
Is he excused from that subpoena?
He's excused from the state subpoena.
Mr. Sand?
Yeah, I believe we have under subpoena and we're in contact with Mr.
All right.
Meixner,
You're
so.
not excused from their subpoena. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next witness.
Witness, Ms. Sorgan?
Yes, Your Honor. State calls Dr. Marianne Sens. You can just leave that right there, Dale. Thank you.
Just got a really cool camera extension plate for my
Dr.
tripod.
Sand, I'll have you come right up here, ma'am.
So I
She's
can
going
mount
to swear you an
two
oath.
cameras on one tripod.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and
I do.
And then we'll have you come over here, ma'am. Once you get situated, just try to adjust the mic so it's kind of aimed at your chin, and then make sure the little light is on the bottom there.
Yes, it seems to be.
All right, you may proceed, Ms. Sorgan.
Thank you. Would you please state your name for the record and spell your last name?
Yes, my name is Mary Ann Sens, Sens.
What is your occupation?
I am chair of pathology. I'm a pathologist. I'm chair of pathology at the University of North Dakota, and coroner of Grand Forks County, and a forensic pathologist serving the state of North Dakota.
The ME already?
How long have you held that position?
The coroner.
Or those positions, rather?
I came to North Dakota in 2002.
Okay. Permission to approach the witness, Your Honor. Sorry, that's my microphone.
You may.
Dr. Sens, I'm going to hand you what's been marked for identification, State's Exhibit 20, a 24-page document, and ask you if you recognize that.
Yes, this is my curriculum vitae that I had provided you.
Okay. What is a curriculum vitae?
It's a professional summary of the your training and your accomplishments, publications, grants, projects that you've managed throughout your professional career.
Positions that you've held?
Yes.
Okay. Education?
Education, absolutely.
All right. And is that a true and accurate copy of your curriculum vitae?
Yes, it is.
State moves to introduce Exhibit 20.
Mr. Sand, any objections?
No objection, Your Honor.
Plaintiff's Exhibit 20 is received without objection.
Dr. Sens, can you briefly sum up your curriculum vitae for the jury, specifically as it pertains to your training and experience and education?
Yes, happy to. I graduated from Eastern Michigan University with degrees in biology and chemistry, and then got a PhD at the University of South Carolina. Following that, did a postdoc there up in Boston at Harvard, and then I came back to South Carolina and got an MD degree at the Medical University of South Carolina in Charleston. I stayed in Charleston for my training in anatomic and forensic pathology. After that was finished and I had passed board exams and licensure, I stayed on the faculty at the University of South Carolina, or the Medical University of South Carolina in Charleston for a few years, leaving in 1994 to briefly go up to West Virginia to chair their department there, and was recruited to North Dakota in 2002 to chair the department here in Grand Forks.
Thank you. Now, the fact that you are part of the faculty at UND, does that mean that you teach?
Yes, I teach the medical students and graduate students. We have some undergraduates, and I do some online education.
Okay. Have you ever had to testify in court previously?
Yes, many times.
In the state of North Dakota?
Yes.
In what capacity?
I've testified always as a forensic pathologist, usually regarding some of the cases that I've personally performed, and occasionally as an expert witness for a case I didn't do but have an opinion on.
Okay. And have you been qualified as an expert witness in the courts of the state of North Dakota previously?
Every time, yes, thank you.
And approximately how many times is that?
Every time.
In North Dakota, perhaps 15 to 20. Fortunately, we're not a very high crime state, which I like.
I can understand that.
A little shout out for tourism for North Dakota.
And what area are you qualified as an expert in?
In forensic and anatomic pathology.
Your Honor, at this time, the state asks that Dr. Sens be designated and qualified as an expert in anatomic and forensic pathology.
Any objections, Mr. Sand?
No objection, sir.
She is so qualified and accepted.
She is so qualified.
Thank you. Dr. Sens, can you please tell us what the procedure would have been with the North Dakota Forensic Examiner's Office for receipt of a body for autopsy in 2007?
I was, at the time, the temporary forensic examiner for the state, and a coroner would call the office and to say that they had a case, and then the case would generally be brought to Bismarck. Occasionally it was brought to Grand Forks. In this case, it was brought to Bismarck.
Okay. Now, when you say this case, do you mean the death of Anita Knutson?
Yes.
Okay. And you're the individual who performed that autopsy, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Can you please tell us about the protocol that you followed with regards to that autopsy?
Yeah, the same as we do for all autopsies. We first get a history from the coroner, from law enforcement, the applicable people that might know information of what happened, what the last time the person was seen, things like that. We also try to get medical history. I can't remember in this case whether we got any or not prior to the autopsy, but she was a very young woman also, so it wouldn't have been quite as important as if a person had known medical diseases.
Why is it important for you to obtain that information?
Because we have to look for unusual things at autopsy. For instance, if there'd been a heart pacemaker, we would have to know that. If there had been some other surgery, a transplantation, if the person was diabetic, they might have certain findings. And conversely, if we see something, even if the cause of death is unrelated, say if the cause of death is a stab wound or a gunshot wound or a traffic fatality, occasionally we do find people with undiagnosed medical conditions that are important for their family to know. And so we try to get a good medical history so that we know that.
Then what do you do?
We proceed with an external examination, which is basically documenting the clothing the person might have had on, documenting any injuries, collecting any evidence if there was any hair. In the case of a homicide, we would very often try to get fingernail scrapings or other evidence depending on what is there on the body. We then take some photographs of the body, and following that we proceed with an internal examination, looking at each organ, documenting any trauma to the body, the extent of the trauma, assessing the cause of death, seeing if there's any contributing factors to that death, and then finish and write the autopsy report. Collect toxicology samples also, blood, urine, vitreous, which is fluid from the eye, to look for drugs, alcohol, and other toxicology specimens.
Okay, Dr. Sens, you said that during the process that you document. How do you do that?
We generally I take notes. We take a lot of photographs. We have sketches that we can fill in, and we dictate immediately after the autopsy, sometimes during the autopsy, our findings, and those are recorded.
Okay. And how are these recorded?
I personally work, I enter them myself on a computer. I find that easier than doing dictating and transcription, particularly since I was at the time going between Grand Forks and Bismarck. So I had a little laptop with me, and I entered the stuff myself.
Okay. And when you're done, do you create a report?
Absolutely.
Okay. Permission to approach, Your Honor.
You may.
And I'm going to be utilizing the well a lot with this witness. So.
All right.
Apparently we're collating filings right now. Michelle Phillips, congratulations on
Dr. Sens, I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 23 for identification, 9-page document, and ask you if you recognize that.
Yes, this is the autopsy report that I prepared, along with the report of death, which is a supplemental report.
No spoilers,
stating that the
Judy.
person
We're
died.
going to it at lunch.
And when you completed that report, what did you do with it?
It remained with the Bismarck Medical Examiner's office.
Going to show you what's been marked for identification as State's Exhibits 22A through 22W inclusive, and ask you if you recognize these.
Yes, these are all copies of photographs that were taken at the autopsy.
You were present when those photographs were taken?
Yes,
And are they true and accurate representations of the photographs that were taken?
yes.
State moves to introduce Exhibits 22A through 22W inclusive.
Mr. Sand, the
Objection, Your Honor.
State's Exhibits 22A through 22W are received. This is 23 photographs without objection.
Thank you, Your Honor. Okay, you can just set those down there, Dr. Sens. Okay. And lastly, we'll just work with this last exhibit here real quick before I go sit down. Showing you what's been marked for identification as State's Exhibit 21. Do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
And what is it?
That is a anatomic diagram, a schematic diagram of a adult female. I created this for you. Actually, I didn't create the drawing, but on the drawing are the location of the 2 stab wounds I found at the autopsy. I created this this year at your request when we were reviewing the case.
Okay. So to be clear, it's basically a little outline of a person.
Yes.
Right? And that's a standard form, is that right?
That's a standard form, yes.
However, there's some markings on the document, is that right?
That's correct.
And you created that?
I created that at that time.
And is this true and accurate as to what you created based upon the case information in this matter?
Yes, it is.
State moves to introduce Exhibit 21.
Mr. Sand?
No objection.
State's Exhibit 21 is again received without objection.
Now, Dr. Sens, you had indicated on your statements just recently that you prepare a report of autopsy that comes up with your conclusions. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Dr. Sens, could you please explain to us what you mean when you say cause of death?
Yeah, when we say the cause of death, that is basically the disease or the process that led to a cessation of life, what caused the person to die. There can be a lot of things wrong with us. We could have diabetes, we could have heart disease, but what we die of is the cause of death, and that may be that disease, or it may be trauma, such as a gunshot wound or a stab wound. But whatever is the process, the ultimate process leading to death is the cause of death.
And how do you go about determining cause of death?
We do the autopsy. That's why we review the medical records. That's why we do the details that we have. That's why the path residency is 4 years long to study disease, and why the forensic pathology fellowship is a year long, so that we assess the cause of death.
And is cause of death different than manner of death?
Yes, it is.
Could you please explain to the jury what manner of death is?
Yes, manner of death in this country is a public health assessment, and it's to classify each death the best we can into 5 categories. Natural death, where the death was caused by a disease or a process. Suicide, where a person takes their own life. Accident, where there is a force that cannot be controlled or is not controlled, that sets in a chain of events to take the person's life. Homicide, where the death is as a result of the action of another person. And then undetermined, when we cannot tell. This is a public health, strictly public health determination. It is not legal at all. There's a totally different process, and we're going through part of that process today to determine whatever legal charges, ramifications should be present. Manner of death is a public health classification that I make, that doctors make themselves. We don't have a jury. It's our best estimate as to why the death occurred. Was it caused by another person? Was it caused by an accident? Was it caused by disease? Was it caused by yourself? Or we don't know.
So, Dr. Sens, before I get into the specifics of this particular case, I want to ask you to explain a few more items to the jury.
Okay.
Could you please explain what livor mortis or lividity is?
Yes, livor mortis, lividity is basically the settling of the blood. When we die, our heart stops pumping, and the blood that's there by gravity settles to the lowest position. That causes the blood to accumulate in the lower areas of the body that are not, doesn't have any pressure points from anything. And it also, because it's not being oxygenated, it tends to be darker. So it's darker areas where the blood is settled, still within the vasculature, but it reflects that the heart isn't pumping anymore, and with gravity it settles.
Okay. So to a layperson, what would that look like?
A darkening of the skin in the areas that are lower with a very sharp lightening of the skin, say if a person is laying on their back, where their buttocks or where their shoulders may be touching the ground, that'd be light. In the areas away from that, it would be much darker.
And how long does that last, that lividity or livor mortis?
It starts to occur right at death. You can usually start to see it in 2 to 3 hours. In most people, it tends to maximize and become very fixed at about 8 hours, and then it goes away, or it doesn't go away, but we start losing the perception of it as decomposition starts to occur and other changes supersede it. That generally starts, we say, at about 48 hours. However, if a person's in a cool environment without a lot of sun, it may be a bit longer. If it's warm and hot and the person's out in direct sun, decomposition may start in 8 to 10 hours. So lividity, really, you lose, it's still there, but you lose the perception of it once decomposition sets in.
Okay. Now, most of us have seen TV and movies, CSI shows where they set the exact time of death in the autopsy. Does that ever happen?
No. This isn't Perry Mason either. No one is going to get up and, explain exactly what happened. That's just for television.
And why is that not possible?
These are very complex situations, and you have to look at all the different facts and come up with a range. And that range is just that. It's a range.
Do you have to look to outside information?
Absolutely.
Okay. Will you ever be able to determine time of death based on autopsy alone?
Only when there's a pacemaker that stops, and I query the pacemaker.
Okay.
And that's really not from the autopsy.
That's true. Okay. Dr. Sens, what is a hesitation mark?
A hesitation mark is something we call a sharp force injury, and they're very common as a person is injuring themselves it hurts. And so as they start to cut their skin, either to kill themselves or some people just like cutting their skin, sometimes it goes a little bit deeper and then the pressure is released and then goes a little bit deeper. It's an irregular indentation in the skin and also an irregular, you stop and you start, reflective of hesitation, hence the word hesitation. That may be a person's decision not to cut themselves, or it may reflect pain, or it may reflect any other mental things they're thinking about, but their hesitation leads to an irregular, usually superficial, incised wounds or wounds from a sharp object.
Have you ever encountered hesitation marks in a case that you have ruled a homicide?
Yes.
Okay. And can you explain those?
Sometimes people are actually cutting themselves. Sometimes a person is committing the homicide and they may have second thoughts. The person may move. Any number of reasons why it isn't a, so to speak, direct incised or direct stab wound with a sharp object.
And at this time, Dr. Sens, I'm going to come up and work with you with some of the exhibits, okay?
Okay.
All right, I'm sorry for hovering, but we have to share. All right. Now, on State's Exhibit 21, being the anatomical diagram. Can you please describe where you put the markings on that diagram?
Yes, I put 2 markings on the diagram. I labeled them A and B. They are on the upper chest above. One is more toward the center, and one is more toward the right side of the body.
Okay. Why did you label these A and B?
We have to keep track of the wounds, and I have no way. In this case, I have no way to know which wound was inflicted first. In fact, it's very uncommon that we are able to tell which wound was inflicted first. And so we generally will label them either A, B, C, starting from the top of the head going down. Some people use 1, 2, 3. Again, with the emphasis that these are, I just assign them to keep track of them during the autopsy. It doesn't imply that A was first or B was second.
Okay. So these notations correspond to a wound?
Yes.
Okay. And is that notated in your report as well?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Permission to publish 21 to the jury, Your Honor.
You may.
And Dr. Sens, we have a number of photographs here. I'm going to have you explain a few of these in particular.
Okay.
Now, some of these you picked out and some of these I picked out. Is that correct?
That's correct.
I'm going to specifically get to some of the pictures that I picked out because I'm impatient. Okay, specifically drawing your attention to exhibits 22U, 22V, and 22W.
Yes.
Can you please describe 22U?
22U is a photograph of the decedent demonstrating her backside. She is laying.
No, go ahead.
She is laying on the autopsy table, and an assistant is holding her in that position.
Okay. 22V?
22V is a portion of the front from about the waist down to her feet.
Okay. And how about 22W?
22W is a picture from her head down through her upper thighs, overlapping a bit to get the full body.
Okay. What can we learn from looking at those photographs?
We can see the stab wounds to her chest. We can also see that there is a partial lividity pattern on the front of her and on the front of her face.
Okay. And what does this indicate to you about the position of her body at the time of her death? For a period of time after her death, she was actually on her stomach for a while. Laying face down?
Laying face down.
Okay. Going to show you, we'll work with working now with 22N through 22T. These are photographs of what?
22N is of her hands. In fact, most of these are of various views of her hands.
Okay. And why was it important to photograph her hands?
It's important to see if there's any what we call defensive injuries to the hands, if there's any trace material. In this case, there was, I could visually see a hair, and we photographed that. And to see if there's, torn nails, things of that nature.
Okay. And can you tell us about defensive wounds, what you mean by that?
Yeah, defensive wounds are wounds that, from the location, appear to be as the person may be defending themselves. For instance, a wound on the inside of the hand may be inflicted as someone is holding their hands up. It's our estimate. It doesn't mean that it really happened that way, but it is based on experience and training and an assessment of whether or not the person was responding in a defensive way to the injuries that were occurring.
Because it's human instinct to try to protect yourself, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And did you find any indication of any defensive wounds on Anita's hands?
No, there was a great deal of blood, but we couldn't really identify anything. As I said, there was a hair. We photographed the hands. There wasn't anything that we could definitively say was from that.
Okay. And then I'm going to show you a couple more pictures that I picked out.
Can I ask which pictures you just showed her?
These were 22N through T.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Showing you 22L and 22M. What do these show?
These are a picture of the frenulum, the inside of the inside of her cheek or lips, excuse me. And we've got a little string of tissue there called the frenulum. The reason we take that is that if a person is suffocated, have hands over their face, and they're struggling, very often that is torn. And we demonstrate that in this case, there wasn't any tearing, nor was there any oral injuries. We also look very carefully at the inside of the mouth. We generally can't get a good picture of that, but we look for it and document that whether or not there's any oral trauma. Occasionally people are missing teeth and things like that, so it's a good assessment of whether there was trauma inside the mouth.
Okay. Now, Dr. Sens, I'm now going to show you 22A through G. What are those images of?
Those are photographs of the 2 stab wounds that were present, both as they appeared on the body, and then because our skin stretches and our body stretches a bit, how a wound, a stab wound looks on the body is very different than how it may have been inflicted, and so we try to adjust the skin a little bit to get a better picture of how the wound actually occurred on the body.
Okay, and is that what you're doing in picture? If I can find the one where you're doing that.
Yes, picture F, and to some extent picture E.
Okay, and you're basically just manipulating the wound a little bit so that you can see.
So that it was back to where it was when it occurred, because the skin stretches, and it would be misinterpreted if it was a big gapping hole. It's not, it's a slit.
Okay. Now, in these photographs, we are also seeing a ruler or a scale, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And can you
and a
tell
case number.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And that's important for keeping track of everything, isn't that right?
Yes, it is.
Can you please tell us what the dimensions of these wounds were?
Yes, these wounds, and I measured them, and they're in my report, but they're in the about an inch in length and less than an eighth of an inch in width.
Okay. And we're also looking at 22G, correct?
Correct.
And that depicts what?
Those are 2 stab wounds. That shows her chest, and it shows both stab wounds present. The other images are close-ups of individual wounds. And I also should say, to give you some history, if you look at these are reddish. We take them at that time. The medical examiner was only using Kodachrome slides, 35 millimeter slides. Those were then scanned at a later point. I was
using
taking
slides
some
in 2007?
digital photographs, but any photograph and any time you go through a scanning process, stuff always looks redder than it truly is. And so I wanted to preface, if you are looking at those, they're different than you would expect for a Christmas photograph, obviously.
Understandable.
A normal family photograph.
Okay. Are you able to determine from 22G the distance between the two wounds?
Yes, the distance is approximately 3.5 inches.
Looks like the
Now,
defendant
you
can
picked
see
out
both
these
the
photographs,
questioner and the witness.
22H, I,
Probably the jury as well.
J, and K. And I'm going to ask you to explain to the jury why you picked those.
Yes. The 22H is a picture of her chest plate. We removed the chest plate, the ribs, during autopsy. And this is a picture of that, of the inside of that. It's actually photographed upside down, but it shows the 2 stab wounds that are present on the inside to show that they went through the ribs and into the chest. Photograph number 22I is the inside, and it shows where one of the stab wounds hit the heart and caused a larger wound. Obviously, a knife can move. The person using the knife can move, and the victim can move, both independently and combined. The internal wounds are often larger than what's on the outside.
Now, Dr. Sens, you said went through the ribs. Did this stab wound go through bone?
This one stab wound just went through the soft tissue between the ribs. The one that was closest actually went through part of the soft part of the rib that's cartilage, so it's not bone.
Okay. Can you explain that a little bit more, what the soft part of a bone?
Yeah, our bones, especially our ribs when we're young, are connected, have cartilage at the end, and they have cartilage where they connect to other bones. And it's a little bit easier to cut through at that point because you're not cutting through calcified bone.
Okay. And cartilage is kind of the same stuff that we have in our nose and our earlobes, correct?
Correct.
How many of you guys just touched your nose to see how soft it was?
Were you able to determine with a reasonable degree of medical certainty how much force was necessary to cause those stab wounds?
These would not take a terrible amount of force. You are going through basically muscle, a little bit of cartilage, and then the heart is muscle. That is very easy to cut through. And the stab wound also went through the rib or through the lung, and that's very easy to cut through. It's mostly just air and some elastic tissue.
Okay. Dr. Sens, what was Anita Knutson's cause of death?
She died from exsanguination, or she bled to death from stab wounds, one of which severed her heart, cut her heart open, and the blood ran out of her heart.
What does it mean if a wound is immediately fatal?
I hate the word immediate. I can give you some ranges. A wound that would, say, be the fastest to kill you would be one, say, that cut your brain in two. And we know that happens rarely with, say, an internal stroke or something in the midbrain in the pons. If you have a injury, say a shotgun blast or a large ballistic injury to the head, that's very quickly or close to immediately fatal within a matter of seconds. exsanguination or bleeding can occur in different time frames. This was very, very quick. She lost a lot of blood from her heart. Within seconds to minutes, she likely lost conscious within a minute or so from the one stab wound. And I wouldn't call that immediate, but it's within a minute or two with the loss of consciousness in a shorter period of time.
Her positioning indicates it might have been quicker.
The one wound was likely survivable. The one wound went through her lung, and it caused a lot of damage, and it caused some hemorrhage. But had she gotten medical care promptly, it was likely survivable. The other wound was not. The other wound, as I said, she bled out very, very quickly. It cut a part of the heart that is very thin. The blood would have, there was no way to stop the blood from that, and she would have lost consciousness within seconds to a minute and died shortly thereafter.
Dr. Sens, were you able to determine what kind of knife caused these wounds?
It was likely a single blade weapon, but there's a very broad range. We really can't identify this came from this gun. I can't do that.
Okay. Why do you say it was likely a single blade?
I say it was likely because when we looked at it and we opposed the edges, it appeared that one edge was sharper than the other, saying that it was a single-edged blade as opposed to a double-edged blade. And certainly a single edge is much more common. But again, that is my opinion. It's an estimate, and it's going on a pattern in the skin.
Are you able to determine what the length or width of a knife based on a wound?
No, we can't.
And why is that?
Because stabbing is dynamic. As I said before, a person can have a stab wound and the knife can move, the knife can wiggle, the knife can move even if the person doing the stabbing stays still. The person that's a victim can move, and that will increase the diameter of the knife. I know that in crime novels and in TV they can measure it, but we really can't. They use plaster of Paris and they pour down and get a model of the knife, and you can't do that. Realistically, stab wounds we can stay where they are. I have seen stab wounds with a little tiny pocket knife that left a 10-inch opening in the skin. So we just can't tell. It's too dynamic.
Okay. Dr. Sens, your role throughout this entire investigation was the performance and documentation of the autopsy, correct?
Correct.
Okay. In order to determine cause and manner of death?
Yes.
All right. Is it your job to determine who caused that death?
No, not at all. Okay. I can't.
Okay.
I'm here, I explain, I'm an advocate for the deceased person. She was my patient, and I examined her and to the best of my medical ability figured out why she died.
Okay. Now you explained to us what the cause of death was. What was your public health determination as to the manner of Anita's death?
Homicide.
And why did you reach that conclusion?
The stab wounds themselves were incompatible with someone stabbing themselves and then flipping over and bleeding out the way they did. It would be highly unusual.
And you ruled out the other potential manners of death as well?
Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Sens. I have no more questions.
Is there anything with the autopsy that we're going to do or not?
I believe I introduced all the exhibits, Your Honor.
You might have introduced them, but you didn't.
Oh, I'm so
offer
sorry.
Them.
Yes.
Hint.
I believe I did, Your Honor. The autopsy report was received without objection. If it's not, I'm offering 23, which is the report of death and autopsy report.
Mr. Sand? Do you have any objections?
No, sir.
Exhibit 23 is received without objection.
And if I didn't previously offer them, Your Honor, I also...
You did the others.
I did the others. Thank you, Your Honor. I apologize.
He's on it.
Then I have no further questions.
All right.
Thank you, Your
Sand,
Honor.
do you have any cross-examination?
No questions. Thank you, Your Honor.
All right. Is the doctor hereby subpoena, Ms. Sorgan?
She is, Your Honor, and she may be released.
All right. Mr. Sand, any objections?
No, sir.
All right. Thank you very much, doctor. You may come and go as you please.
Thank you very much.
Is it lunchtime? We've got work to do, Judge.
Next witness, Ms.
Nope,
Sorgan.
not yet.
I'll be handling the next one, Your Honor. The state calls Emmy Gebhardt.
So 2 stab wounds, one slight and one major. The major one punctured the heart and caused nearly immediate death. The doctor testified 1 to 2 minutes. It might have been... Oh, that might be death. I think she might have been unconscious before then.
Please.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I'll have you take a seat over here, ma'am. Watch your steps over there. Once you're situated, try to have the microphone aim at your chin and then make sure the light is on the bottom there. All right. Mr. Nelson, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Could you state your name for the record, please?
Amy Gebhardt,
And could you spell your last name for us, please?
Gebhardt.
And what is your current occupation?
I'm a forensic scientist at the North Dakota State Crime Laboratory.
What does that mean exactly?
It means that I analyze evidence for the presence of biological substances on items of evidence. I prepare reports of my findings and provide testimony as necessary to those results.
And how long have you been with the North Dakota Crime Laboratory Division?
A little over 27 years.
Okay. So going back to about 97 or so?
Yes.
Okay. You could describe the nature of your work.
I am an analyst in the DNA unit, and so I analyze evidence for the presence of biological material on those items of evidence and prepare reports of my findings and testify.
If you could describe for us your training and education.
I have a Bachelor of Science degree in medical technology from Minot State University. When I was hired at the crime lab, I was hired as a drug analyst because the DNA section didn't exist at that time. When part of my training and education includes assisting in performing the validation studies and writing the policies and procedures used to start the DNA section. Under the supervision and training of my then supervisor, I successfully completed a competency exam and became a qualified DNA analyst in December of 2001.
Have you previously testified regarding DNA analysis?
Yes.
Approximately, how many times, have you previously been qualified as an expert in DNA analysis?
Yes.
Approximately how many times?
I've testified 51 times, and I was qualified as an expert 26 of those times.
Okay. Permission to approach the witness, Your Honor?
You may.
That nest of cables over there on the corner of the screen driving me nuts. Somebody should wrap that, put at least a little bungee or something on it.
Now, I've handed you an exhibit. What is that exhibit number?
24.
Okay, and that's a 4-page exhibit?
Yes.
What is that exhibit?
This is my curriculum vitae or resume.
Does it reflect your educational and employment history?
Yes, it does.
Your Honor, the state offers Exhibit 24.
Mr. Sand?
No objection.
Thanks. Exhibit 24 is received without objection.
Your Honor, at this time, the state would offer forensic scientist Amy Gephardt as an expert in the field of DNA analysis.
Mr. Sand?
No objection.
Court finds that Ms. Gephardt is an expert in the field of DNA analysis and is so accepted.
What is DNA?
DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid, and it is the hereditary material that carries information about how an organism will look and function.
And what is a profile?
A profile is basically a visual representation of a person's unique pattern of DNA.
And why is that important in forensic testing?
It's important because it allows us to uniquely identify unrelated individuals in the population.
Now, are controls used in the testing process?
Yes, they are.
What is a control?
A control is a sample that is run alongside the evidence samples and it has a known and expected result.
And why are those important?
Controls are important because they ensure the accuracy and validity of the results of the question samples that have been analyzed along with those controls.
And what if those controls don't work properly?
If the controls don't work properly, the results from the evidence can't necessarily be trusted, and then the lab has the responsibility, or the analyst has the responsibility, to begin investigating what possibly could have happened, at what step, why, and how to fix that.
Is there anything about the testing process that can change the DNA type in a sample?
No.
What is a quality assurance?
Quality assurance is a program conducted by the laboratory to ensure the accuracy and reliability of the tests that the lab performs.
Are quality assurance programs in effect in your lab?
Yes, they are.
When the lab receives cases for DNA testing, what steps are taken to ensure the integrity of the evidence?
When evidence is received at the laboratory, it is assigned a unique identifying number, and it is subjected to chain of custody and secure storage.
And what is chain of custody?
Chain of custody is a process that documents the physical movement and handling of the evidence while it is at the laboratory. It provides tracking of where the evidence is stored and who has it and at what times they have custody of the evidence.
How do you make sure that a proper chain of custody is maintained?
The chain of custody is maintained by, we use a laboratory information management system, and the evidence receives barcodes when it is logged into that LIMS system, and the computer program tracks the movement of the evidence by scanning the barcode in and out of custody and in and out of storage locations.
Now, what are protocols?
Protocols are specific, a set of specific steps that must be followed while performing a particular procedure or method.
Does the lab have written protocols?
Yes, we do.
Do those protocols cover every step from receipt of evidence to the writing of reports?
Yes.
Have those protocols been approved by any agency or organization?
Yes, they have.
Is the crime lab accredited?
Yes.
By whom?
We are accredited by an organization called ANAB. The first A stands for American National Standards Institute, and the NAB is National Accreditation Board.
What does it mean to be accredited?
It means that the lab has received formal recognition for that its policies, procedures, physical building, equipment, personnel, and quality program have met certain standards.
And does your lab follow the guidelines of any organization?
Yes, we do.
Okay. How long has the North Dakota lab been performing DNA testing on forensic casework?
Since about 2001.
Okay. How are profiles generated?
When we are trying to develop a profile from evidence, there's a series of steps that we must go through. The initial step is called extraction. We need to isolate the DNA from whatever the DNA is deposited on, whether that's a swab or a towel or a sheet. After we have isolated the DNA, we need to know approximately how much DNA we have. Too much or too little DNA will not provide optimal results, and so the second step is a quantitation step. After we've obtained an approximate quantity of the DNA that has been extracted, if there is enough, if it has met the minimum quantitation threshold, it will go on to a step called amplification, which is performed by a process called PCR, or polymerase chain reaction. And basically, that step forces the DNA to copy itself. It's not changing the DNA in any way, but it is causing the DNA to make millions of copies of itself. After amplification, the sample is put on the genetic analyzer instrument, and that instrument will translate that DNA into a profile that can be interpreted and used for comparison.
After DNA analysis was completed, was a report created stating the results of analysis?
Yes, it was.
I've handed you a document labeled Exhibit 25. It should be 35 pages. Is that accurate?
I think I'm just going to pin this on the channel. Yeah, if you ever call the courthouse, please don't attribute us to your call to the courthouse. We don't recommend calling the courthouse.
Someone have their phone on?
Yeah, it's me, Judge. I apologize. I'll turn it off.
It should not have been on. Okay.
Was that a hammer of justice?
There are 35 pages of report and one blank page.
Okay. And is this a true and accurate copy of the report for the analysis for the DNA?
Yes, I believe so.
Your Honor, the state would move to enter Exhibit 25 into evidence.
Can I ask whose DNA you're talking about?
It's the report from the case, Your Honor.
Okay. A particular person's DNA?
A lot of it's going to be Anita Knutson's DNA.
Okay. Mr. Sand?
No objection, Your Honor.
Plaintiff's Exhibit 25 is received without objection.
Now, this report, does it accurately represent the conclusions for each one of the items that were analyzed in this case?
Yes.
Okay. Let's take a look at 1A. What is 1A?
Item 1A is a swab from the back of the knife handle.
And what can you tell us about that?
There were several attempts made at developing a profile from the knife, none of which provided a usable profile.
So does the same thing apply to 1D and 1E?
No.
Please tell us about those.
Item 1D was a swab of the front half of the knife handle, and item 1E was a swab of the blade of the knife. The profile developed from item 1D, the front half of the knife, a swab of the front half of the knife, provided a profile that matched the profile from the known sample from Anita Knutson.
So Anita Knutson's DNA was on the knife?
Yes.
Okay. Excuse me. What about 1G and 1H?
1G was a swab of the internal components of the knife, and 1H was a swab of the exterior of the knife handle. Item 1G, the profile developed from item 1G, the swab of the internal components of the knife, was a mixture that was determined to be too complex for comparison.
What does that mean exactly?
It means that there's an indication that there were three or more than three contributors on the knife, and the laboratory's policy is that when an analyst believes there to be more than three contributors, interpretation will not be made.
Why is that?
When you have three or four or more contributors in a mixture on a particular item, it becomes difficult to accurately assign genetic information to individual contributors due to the chances of them sharing genetic information, and it cannot be reliable statements cannot be made about potential contributors to that mixture.
Now, in the process of analysis for this case, was the screen also, was there a screen that was tested?
There was.
And was DNA pulled from that screen?
Yes.
What did that DNA show?
I believe there were 4 samples taken from the screen, 3 swabs and 1 cutting. And the profile from a swab of the top inside left edge of the screen matched the profile developed from the known sample from Anita Knutson. The same with the profile from the cutting of that was taken of the screen. It was a profile that matched the profile from the known sample from Anita Knutson. There was a swab taken of the inside of the metal screen frame that was a partial profile and a mixture. That mixture, we were able to determine a major contributor and a minor contributor, and the major profile matched the profile from the known sample from Anita Knutson. The minor profile was a partial profile and contained limited genetic information that was not suitable for comparison.
So Anita Knutson's DNA was within the cutting portion of the screen, where it was sliced?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, you mentioned that some of these tests were found to be too complex. Was that the term you used? There's too many contributors?
Yes.
Okay. What was that mean, that there could have been contamination at the scene, or does that tell us anything else? What does that tell us?
Objection, Your Honor, he's leading.
Sustained.
Does that tell us anything?
A mixture that's too complex for interpretation means that there are, for our laboratory's purposes, more than three contributors. And we have made the determination in our laboratory that when there's an indication of more than three people, we will not interpret that data.
Now, were statistical frequency calculations performed for the matches reported?
Yes.
And what is the significance of population frequencies?
Population frequencies provide significance to a match. It's one thing if I am able to tell you that the profile from A matches the profile from the subject or victim or whoever the contributor, the known person is. But it's important to substantiate that match by giving an estimate of how frequently we would expect to find the profile from the evidence in a given population of unrelated individuals.
Did all the controls show that the tests here were performed properly?
Yes.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Sand, do you have any cross-examination?
Briefly, sir. Can you hear me all right with this microphone?
No, the microphone's terrible.
Thanks for coming in today.
Yes.
Can I have you flip your report to page 30?
The knife was left at the scene, so I don't think it was used to cut the screen to after. Either the screen was cut for them to get in, or it was cut to them get out. If it was cut to get out, why would they then throw the knife on the
top
bed?
there,
And then
item
leave?
17. I believe it's 17I, right?
Yes.
Do you know what item that is?
Yes.
What is it? Thanks.
It is fingernail clippings from Anita Knutson.
And what's found in item
Why is he destroying that microphone?
17I,
17I right was subjected to Y chromosomal analysis or male-specific DNA testing, and there was a partial profile developed of an unknown male.
Under her fingernail?
Under her right fingernails, yes.
Whoa.
Okay.
Unknown male under the right fingernail.
And the knife that you tested, based on Mr. Nelson's questions, came back with Anita Knutson's DNA on it as well, right?
The knife that was tested, yes.
Well, you didn't test it, I'm sorry.
I did not.
I'm sorry. And that was a folding knife.
Yes.
That's what you have from the report, because this report was done by someone who's not there anymore, correct?
Correct.
That's why you're here.
Yes.
It's a folding knife.
Yes.
Had Anita's DNA on it.
Yes.
She had male DNA under her fingernail.
Yes.
No further questions, thank you.
That looks really good for the defense.
Mr. Nelson, do you have any redirect, sir?
Yes, Your Honor, very briefly. Looking at the report that shows that there was male DNA under Anita's fingertips, can you tell us when that DNA was deposited?
I cannot.
So there's no way to know when that happened?
No.
At least you can't tell us.
No.
Okay. No further questions, Your Honor.
She was in her bathrobe.
Sand?
Did she just get out of the shower?
All I got, sir.
All right. Mr. Nelson, is this witness here by subpoena?
She is, Your Honor, and she can be released.
All right. Any objections, Mr. Sand?
No, sir.
All right. Thank you very much, ma'am. You may come and go as you please. Please make sure you leave the items, though.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
No mementos from this court.
Do you have another witness today, Mr. Nelson?
We do, Your Honor, but she's going to be quite lengthy. I don't know if you want to take lunch recess right now, being
Okay.
quarter to
Quite
12.
lengthy. Again, you're thinking an hour or so?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, the jury, the time is 46 minutes after 11. It's a little bit early, but I did start you at 8:30, so maybe we're okay with that. The plan would be for you for us to be in recess till 1 o'clock, at which point you would be requested to return, hopefully a few minutes before that, maybe 12:50, 12:55. While you're gone for lunch, please do not converse with any witnesses, any party, or any attorney in this case concerning any matter. Direct any questions or discuss any problems that you may have with the bailiffs. Do not read about, listen to, or view news accounts of this trial. Until you retire to deliberate your verdict, please do not discuss the case. Do not allow anyone to discuss the case with you, and please do not use the internet or other electronic technology in any attempt to learn information about this case or communicate with your family, friends, or anyone else about this case. And do not form nor express any opinion about this case until I've given it to you for your deliberations. I hope to repeat this instruction at each recess. If I fail to do so, it will apply to you throughout the trial. All right? We'll be in recess for the jury until 1 o'clock. Excuse me.
All right, we're gonna jump. Man, this makes me think. Okay, everything that I heard there, obviously the medical examiner, that we know she died from stabbing. The DNA, though, a male DNA under her fingernails. Here's, if she took a shower and was coming from, or had gone into her room after she took a shower. This is a girl who took a lot of effort to paid a lot of attention to her appearance, right? How she looked. She was very well kept that way.
No, Your Honor.
I can't imagine.
Sand?
No, sir.
All right, we'll be in recess until 1 o'clock.
Can't imagine her taking a shower and not washing her hair. And if you wash your hair, one of the best ways to clean your fingernails is to wash your hair. Like it just works. Okay, how do you have male DNA under your fingernail after a shower? If that's what happened, that would be like defense should jump on that. All right. Here's where we are. We are watching two courts at the same time. We have closing arguments in the New Hampshire trial, New Hampshire versus Jason Levesque. Levesque, sorry, that we need to watch. We've started those already. We're going to portal over them and watch the rest of them. So I have to play some music, and we're going to make a jump. The portal is already set up. Greeners is already first in chat. Sorry it happened, but we're gonna do that. We're gonna jump over. Sorry, no lunch for you or me. Apparently, I haven't even had time to explain some of the cool toys I got today. Look at this one. It looks like something the dentist might use on a bad patient, but it's actually for cameras. So, portal. Grab your portal, buddy. We're gonna jump. Tonight, when you go home, please hug the people you love, smile at someone, make their day just a little bit better. Please stay safe. I turned my mic off. Please stay safe. Then we go live again in just moments with the closing arguments as in the New Hampshire case. The snowplow driver, bad neighbors, bad roommates to bad neighbors. We'll be back here in just a little bit. See you guys. Bye.